Hello, everybody, and welcome in the Nonviolent Communication discussion of the Marshall B. Rosenberg's book. And my guests are again Nechama and Nerdalliun. Yeah, we used to stream together in the past. And guys, I will later on provide the links below how you can follow and support my speakers. And today, chapter 3. Nechama, I will let you lead.
Okay, so we've got chapter 3, which is all about observing without evaluating. And here we go. Okay, here's one of the first quote in the book that really, I've never heard it before and it really stood out to me. It says, observe. There are few things as important as religious as that. I thought this was such an interesting quote, particularly because as I find we get more and more involved in technology, the harder and harder it becomes to focus. And I have to make focusing like actually something that I do deliberately. And observing without evaluating, which we'll get into a little more later, how exactly to do that, what exactly it is, actually does take a lot of focus. It takes a lot of focus, takes a lot of practice. And so I thought that the word religious here was very interesting, which indicates like a practice, something that you have, you don't just get it like that. You actually have to put in some effort. And you get better at it over time. And I think that's a really good way to look at it, rather than just, oh, a concept, you get it. It really is a practice. Yeah, I was just really tickled by that word religious. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I wasn't exactly tickled by religious. I thought it was an interesting choice of words. Like there are many different religions. The religion I was brought up with put quite an emphasis on having faith beyond what is observed. So to make observation an important part of religion kind of goes against what I was taught as a child.
It's interesting as well that many religions, when they have they call it a strict observance. So it's just interesting, the parallel of all these words.
But those are two different meanings of the word observe, though. Observance and to observe.
To me, it's focusing on the surrounding. You kind of just fully aware of everything that is going on around you, yet withholding judgment in a sense. Just, I hear birds, beautiful images. I'm here and now. So that observation, yeah, without evaluation is very interesting. Religious of that.
So here's a little bit about what the chapter starts with, what nonviolent communication entails. So nonviolent communication entails the separation of observation and evaluation. We need to clearly observe what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're touching, that has affected our sense of well-being without mixing in any evaluation. So you hear the bird without saying, I like the bird sounds pretty, the bird is noisy, the bird is ugly. Simply observing, I hear a sound. That's the observation without any evaluation added onto it. And this becomes a very, very important tool. Now we have, do one of you guys want to read? Or I can.
Yeah, Nechama, you prepared a wonderful slideshow. I kind of feel like I will take it.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah. Observations are an important element of non-violent communication, where we wish to clearly and honestly express how we are to another person. When we combine observation with evaluation, so when we mix the two together, we decrease the likelihood that others will hear our intended message. Instead, they're apt to hear criticism and thus resist whatever we're saying. So if we immediately jump to mixing in the evaluation with the observation, then the person may feel judged and all of these things. And so the whole point of separating the two is to decrease the defensiveness, decrease the judgment, so that the true intention of what we want to say, we can keep communication open, and we can get our point across without sort of placing these, judgment of bad or evaluation of these kind of things on it. Nonviolent communication does not mandate that we remain completely objective and refrain from evaluating. So I think this is a very important point. The point of nonviolent communication is not to not evaluate at all. You're allowed to have your feelings. You're allowed to be angry, mad, upset, sad, whatever you might think somebody said something mean. You're allowed to have whatever judgments and evaluations about the other person's communication. It's simply a practice of separating the two when we're talking and being clear internally of what is happening and how we feel about it, and being able to communicate those two things separately so that the other person is so that we can communicate. So it's not saying don't be judgmental, don't evaluate, all that stuff. And I think that's important to know, because our reaction is not something that we can, or that we should get rid of. If I'm angry about something, there's a reason. Somebody's crossed a boundary, something happened I didn't like. It's important to know that I'm angry or sad or all of these things. The whole point in most cases to communicate with someone is to tell them we don't like something that they did, with this nonviolent communication. So this is just a tool of how to do it rather than to ignore the fact that we don't like it.
I really like that part, Nechama, separation between evaluation and observation. That one stood out to me in the book as well immediately. Like, because it feels like the person will be judged.
Yeah.
The moment you evaluate something, especially if your evaluation does not align with the other person. So it's easy to kind of get lost in it.
Yeah, exactly. And chances are what I feel is not going to align with them. Because if I think that what they said was stupid, let's say, they obviously thought what they said was smart or good. So we're going to disagree on that, And I've found, because I've practiced this a lot in the past, that a lot of the time that whatever I evaluated, I thought I was so right. I actually was wrong. They were coming from all of their place. And I realize now, like, oh, most of the time, actually, in my experience, people are coming from good intention. And I'm interpreting it as they're trying to hurt me. They're trying to this, they're trying to that. And it's really just a matter of like how we're understanding each other. So yeah, I really like that as well. The separation of the two and trying to make it more clear. It only requires that we maintain a separation between our observations and our evaluation. Nonviolent communication is a process language that discourages generalization, static generalization. Instead, evaluations are based on observation. And I think this is very important. And this takes some practice in training, really, specific to time and context. So it's a really classic example. You always leave the socks on the floor. Okay. That's not specific to time and context. On Monday, 2 nights this week, I noticed that the laundry was still on the floor. That's an observation. Always is not true. It's not always on the floor. Now I feel way more defensive. 2 times this week, okay, we can talk about that. You know, at least that's a specific time and context. The other person doesn't want to feel like you're accusing them of something that's not true. You know, even if the behavior is something we didn't like, or somebody's approaching me with something I did that they don't like. If we keep it specific to the time and context, at least we're dealing with reality and not some always, never, this vague generalizations that anybody would get defensive about. I don't, you know. So I think that
100% agree. What do you think, Nerdalliun?
Yeah, I like clarity, and the specific time and place can be useful sometimes.
Yeah. So this and the next slide is how we do it. Like, how do you actually know that you're accomplishing this? And okay, so we can dig into this. There's 3 columns here. I will say right off the bat, I do not like the first column. I ignore it completely, where it's all the grammar stuff. Now, I included it because it's in the book and some people learn better this way. So if I was my book and I was teaching a class, I would leave all the grammar out because I get caught in the weeds of that. But it can be useful if some people's brains work this way. And then so it's exactly the grammar of when it's an observation, when it's an evaluation. The second column here we have is, hold on a second. Excuse me, guys. I just want to make sure that's not my sound. Okay. Give me 1 minute. Technical difficulties. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, we're just have to fix something on my computer. Okay, we're back now. You guys can see my screen. Okay, so we have in the middle column here, we have an example of an observation with an evaluation mixed in. This is something that people are going to get defensive, or it's not accurate. It's extra or it's too little. And then we have the last column, which is an example of observation separate from evaluation. And this will allow the communication to kick off more accurately. So let's see. How do you think we want to do this? Should we just jump right in, Kara?
Yeah, so I would say we might use communication and then samples 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We read one and then we give examples of observation and evaluation mixed in, and then example separate from the evaluation. I think we can take turns reading the. Yeah, you can start, Nechama, and then Nerdalliun.
Okay, great. And then after this, we have another slide, one more slide, which is we'll have an exercise of we're going to have to guess which is which. So that part will be fun. Okay, so the first one, the use of a verb, so an action, without an indication that the evaluator takes responsibility for the evaluation. And the example of this with the observation and evaluation mixed in, you are too generous. I think the problem with this sentence, the reason why it's an evaluation, it's very vague and it's too. I'm telling the person you are too much. Who am I to decide? Something very specific would be, I noticed you give $500 to charity every week. I'm not evaluating. That is very generous. Maybe that person thinks that's not even enough. Maybe they think they should be giving $1,000. And to them, it's, so the too generous isn't an accurate statement. It's not a statement of fact. And I think that's what makes it an evaluation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, facts aren't opinions. No, yeah, facts and opinions are different things. too generous is an opinion
Mm,
about a specific charitable kind of gift that.
yeah, yeah. I think when people are looking at this for the first time, it can be confusing because you go, yeah, that person is generous. And it can be, it takes the brain, at least when I started doing this, everybody's a little different. It took my brain a lot of like training to get used to separating the fact from the evaluation. Yeah. So the example here, the observation separate from evaluation, when I see you give all of your lunch money to others, I think you are being too generous. So now I'm allowed to have an opinion about it, but I've also stated the exact behavior that I'm seeing, rather than saying you giving your lunch money away is too generous. I think you're too generous. And so that we've separated it. Oh, look who's here. Hi, Andre.
Hello, Andre.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm sometimes silent because I'm trying to edit all of your names into the description properly so that you guys are linked and attributed as speakers. So far, I managed to get Nechama and Nerdalliun. So we are taking turns, Andre, to talk about the slides that Nechama prepared. Nechama. By the way, you guys met, right?
We have talked before, yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. And yeah, so Nechama, when then after you goes Nerdalliun and then Andre.
Okay, Nodrik, why don't you do number 2?
All right, sure. So in the communication column, we have use of verbs with evaluative connotations. And an example of an observation with evaluation mixed in would be Doug procrastinates. An example of them separated, I can only see half of the sentence, but I think from memory, it's Doug only studies for exams the night before. There we go. Yeah. So they're talking about this example is supposed to illustrate that procrastinate is a verb that at least has culturally evaluative connotations. So like most of the times if you see a video on procrastination, is how to stop procrastinating, because procrastinating is supposedly bad. So when you say it may sound like an observation, like, oh, I see you're procrastinating right now, but in the cultural context, that observation has a evaluative connotation. I think that's what the example is trying to show. And then to just observe that a person studies for exams the night before has less connotations, because it may be positive if the person does well and, oh, they only studied the night before and they did well regardless, or it could be they have poor time management skill, or it could be like they procrastinate. But it's more vague about what the evaluation is when you just make an observation of the behavior that's a little bit more specific than just using a value-laden verb like procrastinate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm on my phone, so I can't actually access the slide because I've got Zoom mobile. Is there a way I can get it like up on another PC? If you is it on Discord or something that I can grab?
No, it's okay.
It's live on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, it's a good idea actually.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'll let you go on. Let me just set that up.
Okay, I will read the third example. And the third example is implication that one's inferences about another person's thoughts, feelings, intentions, or desires are the only ones possible. Example: she won't get her work in. That's an implication, definitely. And now, how do we separate that? I don't think she will get her work in, or she said, I won't get my work in. So observation or like commenting on what she said, relating it further, yeah, impartially, that's kind of an observation. Like, I mean, yeah, you say you repeat what she said basically, or you state your opinion, but it's purely with an indication. I don't think she will get her work in. That's still your opinion. It's not a statement of like a statement of truth or fact.
Yeah,
Again,
you're taking
opinions
ownership
and,
of it for yourself. Yeah.
yeah. It's, you're saying that the only way possible, she will not get her work. Like you just like basically crossed her off, and that's it. Yeah. Actually, that's pretty common thing. And I asked people before, why would they say definitively a statement which is just one of the possibilities? And they're like, well, why should I should make my speech as short and precise as possible. And I was like, that's not precise though. It's speculative. It's a speculation kind of said a statement.
Yeah, can't be precise speech if it's wrong.
That's a good point.
Andre, you have the view on the number 4?
I've got number 4. Okay. Is that I don't have page numbers. Whatever's on the YouTube at the moment. What's that?
Yeah, you should
Is
see
it-
a chart.
Yeah.
And there's 3
yeah,
columns.
number 4 on the left-hand side. Okay, so I just had to dial it in.
Yeah,
Alright,
that
so
one, and just go across. Yeah.
So, confusion of prediction with certainty. If you don't eat balanced meals, your health will be impaired, is an example of observation with evaluation mixed in. Whereas if you don't eat balanced meals, I fear your health may be impaired. So it feels like one there has some amount of like concern for well-being of the other, whereas the other one's sort of more chiding. It's like you shouldn't do it because it's wrong, versus shouldn't do it because I care about you. Is what I sort of glean from that.
I think the main difference here is they're trying to separate the fact from what I think. So the first one, if you don't eat balanced meals, your health won't be impaired. It's like, that could be, but are you God? Do you know for sure? Is it a fact? You know, where the second one, if you don't eat balanced meals, I fear. So you're saying, okay, it's not a fact, but I think this could happen. So that's where the evaluation separates off. That's what the I fear is saying, like, look, this is what I think that can happen. I could be wrong. I'm not God. You know, I think
So
that's the
that
main
way-
difference there. Yeah.
It's demonstrating that you're constrained by certainty. So it's not like black or white thinking. It's like, well, I can't know for certain, but relatively sort of probability is very high that this will be the likely outcome of number 1. Whereas number 2, I can't also say it's an impossibility because it still could happen, but it's very likely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Number 5, failure to be specific about reference. The example of observation with evaluation mixed in. Immigrants don't take care of their property. Okay. We're making a blanket statement about immigrants. And then the example of observation separate from evaluation. I have not seen the immigrant family living at 1679 Ross Street, I assume, shovel the snow on their sidewalk. And that could be true. That's a statement I could potentially stand by. rather than throwing all the immigrants under the bus. I'm just throwing the family at Ross Street under the bus. So yeah, failure to be specific. That makes sense.
I absolutely agree.
I think this is I think a lot of people are guilty of this all the time. It's easier to generalize. It's much easier to generalize.
Yeah.
Also, why would you put a person in a category like that? Immigrant family, like specific, is the family, which is coincidentally is immigrant family. But immigrants, like all of the immigrants, some immigrants, yeah. It's like immigrants don't take care of their property. That's yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like the shorthand way of how lazy thinking can lead to things like racism and bigotry. Because immigrant family, once if you replace that with like Black people or Jewish people, then suddenly it becomes a very, very like weighty, like bigoted statement. But there's a certain amount of wiggle room where you can say like, well, you know, like that garbage collector family who like are all garbage men, like they all smell and they're all like that. It's like, okay, well, of course. But then when you start saying they're all like that, that also leads into that sort of thinking of, well, if I can generalize one group of people, why not others? Why not make the groups bigger? And it's a slippery slope.
That reminded me of a tweet once I wrote, "Women are amazing, give them a chance to show their caring side and they will perform miracles." And the comments underneath, "What about guys?" Or "Why do you have to be so sexist?" It's like, yeah, I said a general statement. I said about all women, apparently. I meant just a specific story, but it's kind of my fault. I got what I was asking for. Again, I was not precise enough.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking like how could you say that tweet that was very specific and precise? I mean, I don't know if it would work for a tweet, but like, let's say my experience with women in my family and my neighbors has been very caring and da 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 da. You know, they always make me food when I'm sick. You know, like once you start getting specific, it's like it you see how it changes. It's like the thing so much. And but the thing is that, well, who's going to argue with me on the fact that my aunt makes me food every time I'm sick? Like, well, that's what happens. You know, like tell me that I'm wrong. But if I make a claim about all women, yeah, all of a sudden everybody gets defensive and they get mad, and you know.
Yeah. Even if it's even if it's
a good thing,
like a positive thing. Yeah. I remember somebody wrote to me also under same kind of comment, "Well, my wife would beg the differ." Stuff like that.
This is why I'm not on Twitter.
I mean, at least Twitter is Twitter strengthens my character. I do feel like that. Like, yeah. Like
That's
I sometimes I practice Zen by not responding. It brings me to Nerdalliun. You read next.
Number 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an example of use of words denoting ability without indicating that an evaluation is being made. So an example of that with evaluation mixed in is Hank Smith is a poor soccer player. And separating the observation from the evaluation is to say Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games. I think that's clear enough to like what's being illustrated there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can we move on to 7? the use of adverbs and adjectives in ways that do not indicate an evaluation has been made. I can't actually see the bottom right of the screen because the Zoom logo. So one is Jim is ugly, and I don't know what the other one is.
Actually, I made a mistake in the slide, and they both say Jim is ugly.
Oh.
We're just picking on Jim today. I'm sorry, Jim. Okay, let's see what it's really supposed to say. Okay, the second one is, it's supposed to say, the first one is Jim is ugly, and the second one is Jim's looks don't appeal to me. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah, my one's very descriptive and evaluative off the bat. And you can be unattractive to someone, but then also state like their ugliness in a way. So it's like, not only do you am I not attracted to, but no one else should be. Like that's the second one. Sorry, the first one. The second one is just like, not for me.
Oh my God, I feel so sorry for Jimmy. How would I say it? Yeah, like Jimmy is cool. It was like, I don't know how to, I don't remember ever saying it.
I can remember you saying, I cannot possibly find someone attractive.
Yeah, but it's personality, and ugliness is a look thing. Like I can't say that I cannot possibly find somebody attractive because of the personality. Shout out Jeff Bezos. And
I think one thing people say a lot is like, so and so is not my type.
Mm.
You know, that is more about looks, but well, it could be about personality too. But you go, oh, okay, I can acknowledge somebody else likes them, but it's not my type. It's not my vibe. It's not my thing. You know.
Yeah,
but then you're putting it on you as opposed to putting it on Jim. The first one is Jim is ugly. Jim is not my type. It's about me. I'm taking ownership of that. Jim is ugly. Well, you know, that's like a whole
oh my
kind
God,
of worms.
we don't have Jimmy in the room.
I think it's hard not to be like a take ownership in that situation though, because you can't really shift the role of someone, like your an attraction to someone to them completely and have them just deal with it. So you have to sort of take ownership, saying like, yeah, I've got to judge them a bit, and how they respond to it is up to them. But you can do it in such a way that like it's a lot more caustic and harsh. But on the flip side, like you can't just say you need to deal with like the fact that like what's my attraction to you? Come back to me with an answer, because like that just doesn't work.
Oh, imagine that. Yeah. But and then also we get back to the fact thing. Jim is ugly. It's not a factual statement at all. Jim is not my type, or Jim is not appealing to me. That could be a factual. That's definitely a factual statement, right?
I remember in the first discussion about nonviolent communication, we talked about chapter 1, and I said I use nonviolent communication when I translate the language of others to myself, actually. So when I hear somebody says an opinion about me as a fact, I translate it in my own head. I will like unravel. I think my opinion about you is so and so. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's on him. That opinion. So that's how I use it, not to get offended, let's say, or not to take it personally. It's like when people say, don't take something personally, I usually take it personally.
Yeah. That's a really cool tool. Yeah.
Process when you're translating in your head, that's sort of like doing a form of CBT in a way, because you're putting in words like instead of oh he's ugly, it's like I feel he is not attractive to me, and that makes me feel like, and you adding in those sort of filler words, embodying the evaluation before you make it, and then you can be more diplomatic about your speech. So rather than blurting out like, you're like hideous, I'll never go for you. It's like, I feel that we're not on the same level. I don't think you're my type. And sort of like stretching out the sort of thinking before you speak type thing.
I will say, okay, this is hard to say on the internet in front of strangers, but I have, when I've been asked out and I want to turn somebody down, but not be a jerk about it, I've used this tool because I find that it's nice to give somebody a reason that's factual, not just be like, oh, not be rude about it. And so usually what I'll say, thank you, that's so flattering. I'm not interested because I don't date long distance. I'm not interested because I don't want to have kids and you want to have kids, whatever. But my response is always factual. And what I noticed is that when my response is factual, then the person tends to respond in a very understanding and sort of cordial, and then it doesn't create this very weird, awkward, annoying, and we can actually maintain whatever. If there was a relationship before, we can maintain it and go, or if we go our own ways. And yeah, this is one of the main tools that I've used in that case.
I agree with that, using that, because both cases are like a no at the end of the day. But when you shirk someone off and outright just reject them, that can be a lot more not harmful, but it can hurt a lot more, even though it's still just saying no, as opposed to saying like, oh, thank you for saying whatever flattery, but unfortunately like XYZ, and giving a smile or something, and it's still saying no to them, but they're going to come away from that just thinking like, oh well, it didn't hurt to approach that person and potentially open up future endeavors.
Exactly, because I think it takes a lot of courage to approach somebody. So the last thing I want to do is just make somebody regret doing that just because it's not a compatibility or something like that, and yeah. And I also find that even because I've been rejected before, if someone is rejected, and I'm not saying you have to give a reason, but when there isn't really a reason given and it's just this no, I'm not interested, bye, and there's this whatever, no reason or rudeness, I think this is just the other party is sort of what's wrong with me, da da da. And I think it's kind of just nice or a little extra generous to leave them with a solid, this is why, and not saying, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Was it what I was wearing? Blah, 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 blah. That thought process can go. I know I can ruminate a lot. So giving a very solid.
It's a huge problem. Someone with OCD, even when I've gotten an answer, which is pretty definitive, my rumination will try and fill in the gaps that aren't there. So the more gaps there are, more broad an answer you get of no, sorry, or oh no, I have a boyfriend, where you can tell it's a jump to answer. What's wrong with me? Did I approach wrong? Did I do that wrong? Did I do that wrong? And it could simply be that it was convenience for them to sort of give a quick answer rather than nothing was wrong with you. But you can sit there and just ruminate what's fundamentally wrong with me.
Rejection is a painful subject. I also had been rejected, and even worse, there are two types of rejection. One rejection hurts, but a little bit. It's like a bandage report. It's I'm rejecting you, and here is why. And then it could be opinions, or it could be true facts with which I agree or will disagree. But I usually do not fight on rejection. I just hear them out as okay, dude, fair enough. And but there is a second type of rejection which doesn't involve communication. It's a rejection that has no explanation, just nothing, or even worse, you're amazing. You're the best person ever. That's why I cannot see you. And boom, gone. And it's like, what? I don't know. Like, why? Because I'm amazed. Like, and I cannot understand that type of rejection. I don't. It's like, can you please insult me a bunch so I hate you when you reject me? So that I act absolutely like, do not have this like, okay, when you insult somebody upon rejection, the other person has like, oh my God, I dodged a bullet actually. Jesus, what a psycho. But
Yeah.
when you reject somebody in a super kind way and leave in person absolutely confused, and it's like, but is there a hope? Like, I don't understand. You mess people up. So saying your opinion honestly and openly and truthfully is actually kinder somehow.
That is the last case. It's the people who do that, and like it's like, oh, you're like you're so good that like I have to turn you down. It usually points to like they have very deep insecurities in validation, and that like they think they can never live up to you, and in a way it's putting someone on pedestals so high, like they're like, well, I want to reach, but like I can't because there's something flawed with me, rather than just admitting like people are flawed, and the person who they're saying, oh no, you're so good, and like there are all these good things about you, but I can never live up to it. You could just simply go like, yeah, but you've got bad teeth, so like we're sort of the same level. Or you find something humanizing about it, where you realize that you don't have to sort of reject someone and put the nicety out there of like they're too good for you. You can either just be honest with them and give them that answer, or look for like what makes them more appealing to you by looking for the humanity.
Yeah. I think in my experience, if somebody is extra effusive, like you're perfect, so I am rejecting you. Yeah, either I agree with Andre. I think a lot of times it's insecurity, and that they feel like if they're being honest, then they're not just blowing, hot air and not being honest with you. But if they're being honest, then that's really the reason that they're rejecting you. It's likely because they feel like they're going to being involved with you in whatever way the proposition was will make them feel less than all the time, because being reminded, it's like if somebody's an artist and they're insecure about it, and they look at like the best paintings every day and they can't get past their insecurity, then looking at those paintings make them feel bad or whatever. So this is an issue of insecurity, and having to face those insecurities so that you can be comfortable with other people, and letting them shine. They're essentially saying, you shining makes me feel bad. You kind of don't want to be around that person anyways. They're doing you a favor by saying, look, this isn't going to work. I don't know how to deal with you shining.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's saying to someone, don't be your best self around me, because then like I can't even reach the level of like starting to reach you.
This isn't going to work. I'm not.
What's that
I don't know
noise?
how to deal with shining.
Hey, AJ. AJ, if possible, mute YouTube. Just the YouTube, because you had it in echo. Yeah. AJ also read the link.
AJ, welcome to our dating show, our dating advice show.
Yes, I was listening. I do have a comment, but I don't want to interrupt.
No, say a comment about yeah, totally.
So like as far as like rejection goes, for me it's like very important to say that like no is always enough. Like no is a complete sentence. And I get frustrated when it feels like sometimes women are responsible for men's feelings in a way that maybe men don't always feel responsible for women's feelings. For example, like if a woman doesn't feel safe, or if like he interrupted her without having any cognizance about like what she was doing, or things like that, like, and that like in that situation, then she's like worried about hurting his feelings. Like this, I don't know, that like kind of annoys me. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, it's always nice to be aware of other people's feelings, but at the same time, like, no is always enough, and you shouldn't worry about other people's feelings to the point where you're feeling unsafe, or you're putting your own safety at jeopardy. So yeah, I just think that's like important to say.
Yeah. I strongly agree with that. I'll say that everything that I said prior, I think I would put it in the category of like thoughtful and extra. It's not my responsibility to give a reason, to say why. Like I 100% know is a full sentence. I think the reason that I specifically started developing those strategies was because there were people in my personal life that I wanted to be thoughtful of, and maintain those relationships. So I found this was a good tool. But again, no is always a full sentence. And also because I lived in New York City for over a decade. And so I did need some extra tools to reject people on a regular basis in a safe way. But I think what you said is really important, and I strongly agree with it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm glad you brought it up, because I've been holding a thought back and not commenting, thinking that I cannot be the only person who sometimes enjoys hurting people's feelings by rejecting them.
Tell us more.
Tell you more or less. Sometimes, I guess we are talking about nonviolent communication, and so like as a guy, sometimes violence is fun. I mean, as me, sometimes violence is fun. You know, overgeneralize that. And yeah, so I think that the broader point here is there's some assumptions about the goals behind the communication that's happening and sort of taken for granted throughout the book. And one of the assumptions is the goal is not to be funny or humorous, in which if that was the primary goal, then a lot of the advice in this book for communication wouldn't go down very well. So the goal is to, I guess, to give from the heart, to be compassionate in a way, to be caring in a specific way. And I guess Rosenberg is trying to teach, if your goal is to speak in a compassionate, caring manner, then here are some tips on how you can do that. I think it's important to remember that's not always our goal. Sometimes we just want to have some fun, and like, breaking Rosenberg's rules can be a lot more fun than following them. And sometimes we're angry at people and we want revenge, justice. We feel good. Like, good, your feelings should hurt. You hurt a lot of other people. It's karma. You suck it.
What is it? There's a time to live. There's a time to die. There's a,
I also am someone who enjoys justice, but I don't really connect that with like a love of violence. It's a question that I have maybe later on to ask, like what to do when there's been injustice. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's hopefully better to find ways to achieve justice without performing violence.
I'm trying to think of an example, like, can you think of an example, Nerdalliun, of
an example where violence was fun? I do jiu-jitsu, and oftentimes new people will come in and they'll be excessively aggressive, and it's fairly easy to kick their ass, and it's a lot of fun to kick their ass.
Nice. I also am into jiu-jitsu. That's so cool.
look at that?
No, I've done a few classes of jiu-jitsu, and it's funny seeing people like look at others rolling on the mat. They're like, I'm probably good at that. And then someone gets them like on like a top mount, and they're just like, oh shit, like they can just throw me around like a toy. Like I'm got no control here. And they've got to like very quickly learn, like, okay, I'm here for learning, but like the other person's like fully my teacher at that moment. But
I
yeah,
know
it is
two
great fun.
people who do jujitsu.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example where you could talk to that person from today till tomorrow, but until they feel that, that's when they get the message.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if this is like a good part to ask my question, but like in general, I'm really into pacifism. And I think this is like, I think nonviolent communication is very adjacent to that. But this seems to be most effective to me in the prevention of violence when you're able to like cultivate goodness in someone and cultivate a relationship where you're able to like have that trustful connection and also like some sort of mutual sense of mutual but like working together for mutual benefit. But however, like if someone is like actively attacking you, what do you do? Because this actually did happen to me recently, a couple of months ago. Like somebody attacked me on the street, and like what could I do at that point to be nonviolent? Like all I could do was like run, and this like was a situation where I feel like justice didn't happen because this person never learned that the behavior was wrong, and it's still something that like very actively frustrates me in terms of like feeling that injustice doesn't happen. But like, yeah, I guess like it feels to me like the only benefit for justice, the only road to justice in that circumstance would have been to fight back. But like I'm like very not into that, so I would be curious to hear your thoughts.
yeah, these tools definitely would not apply in that case. This is more for like cooperative communication, preventative sort of thing. So I would not recommend this for that instance. As well, I think I'm not an expert in how to deal with that situation, but I think what I've heard is that fighting back is probably one of the worst things you can do, like escalating the physical situation, because usually that turns out pretty badly. So while there's definitely an impulse, I've certainly had an impulse to do that at times. I definitely wouldn't give that as advice. I don't think it would be wise advice, because I think we all want to see you like whole and happy and healthy and unharmed. I don't know. Does anybody else, as far as justice goes, I this is definitely not my arena. I don't know. Does anybody else have anything to say about that?
Well, just I learned a long time ago, being punished for things I never committed, that justice is whatever we make it, but expecting justice from the outside world will lead to massive amounts of disappointment. So I can do my best to be just myself, but expecting it from others is I observed it to be disappointing. So in the case where somebody attacks on the street, running, like there is non-violent communication when somebody is violent approaching you, is might lead to bad results. It's sometimes violence is also not a response. I would find a way to escape the situation. Personally, in that book, spoiler alert, sense of humor does not come as a tool. But I talked about it previously. When in the past I was attacked on the street and there was no way to escape, sense of humor helped. So I made a joke that kind of diffused the situation, and and there was another case where I just started talking to a person, just literally talking to a person, just like, "Dude, are you okay? What happened?" And the situation was completely diffused as well. But those are rare cases. Every situation is different. Every person is different. It's kind of that observation is important. You do make evaluation in your head, just don't see it. Like you observe, you see the person, and you see what you can notice, what you can pick up on. If it's a drug addict under influence, and you can see that there is no reasoning with that person, nonviolent communication doesn't help in that case. You can use some other tool, like depends on the addict. You can use attention, that like to turn their attention elsewhere and then run, basically. Yeah, it's nice to know jiu-jitsu actually. Like I kind of always wanted to plan to put it on my New Year's resolutions, but never did.
Yes, absolutely. I highly recommend jiu-jitsu. It changed my life. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate with like the situation where it's like nonviolent communication does no good. Like this person was like literally yelling at me that they were like trying to kill me, and I was able to run. But the thing that like really keeps me up at night and haunts me is like they're just gonna do that to someone else. And so if I don't stop it, like they're just gonna prey on someone else. And like that's the part that like that's the part of the injustice that like really gets to me, is that like, yeah, there's a predator out there that's just gonna hurt somebody else. And at that point, like, because I didn't do anything, like, am I participating in that violence?
I would say no. You're not participating in the violence. I deeply relate to that feeling of frustration. Like I can think of a time when I was on the subway and this guy sitting across from me started taking pieces of paper, rolling them up in balls, and just throwing them at me. And when I tell you the rage that I felt in that moment, and I'm sitting there and I looked at him straight in the eye and I go, dude, like literally, I said to him, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and he's just smirked and he went, and there must have been at least like, it wasn't a packed train. There was like at least 5 other people on the train, and everyone else is like all of a sudden very busy with their phone, you know?
Yeah.
And it's at least a couple minutes to the next stop. And I'm just like, I don't know what this guy's deal is. He doesn't look like he's on drugs. And like, but I don't know, you know, it's New York City. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't really want to escalate, but I was so mad. I was just like, how dare you? You know, it wasn't even the case. Like I've had like, you know, people come up to me and try to be violent or whatever, but it was just like the pure chutzpah of it, of just like, I am doing this specifically to get on your nerves and you can't do anything about it. And look at all these other grown people. They're not going to do a thing. And I was so mad. I looked at the guy next to him and I was like, are you not going to do anything? Are you not ashamed of yourself? And he's just like, I was like, wow, you know, and that experience. And it just, we got to the next stop and I got off and I left and I just made, you know, I made sure that he wasn't anywhere near, but I was so mad about it. Like, yeah, it kept me up at night for a couple of weeks. Like I was so pissed. And it's just, I guess it's back to what Kara was saying, you know, it's like at some point I have to go, this man is not my responsibility. And thank God for that. And there really wasn't anything I could do in that situation to de-escalate or teach him a lesson. And it's not my job. I've not harmed the world because I've not in 30 or 60 seconds or 5 minutes morally changed this man's worldview. I don't have the ability to do that. Like that is a superpower. There's probably very few people like maybe his mother, probably not. Because if his mother had the ability to do that, he wouldn't be doing what he was doing, you know? So it's a very sort of, it took me a while to sort of let that go because it was very frustrating to me. I'm very much a problem solver. I see a problem, I want to fix it, you know? But I really don't think there was anything I could do. And it's frustrating, but we don't have control of others and they choose to live their life how they do. And I think the best thing I could have done in that situation was to just walk away and accept my frustration, accept my anger, and walk away, because putting myself in harm's way, like if he had the chutzpah to do that, who knows what else he would have done. And I love myself, I love my body, I love my life, I love being unharmed. So I really, yeah, I mean, AJ, putting yourself in my shoes, like what would you tell me? You know what I mean? Do you think there's anything I could have done? I really don't, to sort of bring justice. This is just my personal worldview. At that time, I didn't have this worldview, but at this point, I have the worldview of like karma. When I do a good deed, I could do a good deed for a stranger and just nobody needs to know and this and that, because I think that this is my personal view of the universe. And it's just how I like to look at the world. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I like to put good out and I don't expect anything back. And I guess that's my way of sort of adding a little bit more goodness into the world, going, okay, I can't do anything about that guy, but like, when I see an opportunity to do good that doesn't really cost me much, and then I try to just infuse a little extra, if I can make somebody smile in some way, a little bit, ease the tension of the world a little bit. So that's sort of my approach nowadays. I don't know if that's helpful in any way, but that's sort of my take on it. But yes, if I had my way, would I want to strangle him? Completely.
Yeah. In that situation, I think, there's probably nothing else. That's probably what I would have done as well, is like to just get away. I think that situation is a little bit different than mine. Like, I understand that the way he invaded your space with those pieces of paper, and that was like felt very dangerous to you because you didn't know how else he would be able to invade your space. I understand that it's like very scary, and that's like very legitimate that you felt that way. And like, yes, I do think that the best thing that you could have done is to protect yourself and get away. And with that being also a complete stranger, then yes, like I think, yes, you would have not had any responsibility to try to correct this behavior. In my situation though, like, I don't want to get into the whole story, but it was someone who knew me, and they knew me as a compassionate and kind person. And they are the kind of person who sees compassion and kindness to say, oh, this person is weak. This person, I can get away with whatever I want. This person is soft. This person is not going to like retaliate against me. And so that way I can do whatever I want and they're not going to be able to do anything. And that's the part that really frustrates me, because they are going to continue to do that to people. And the part that really gets me is like, they're going to just keep doing that. They don't have any interruption to their behavior to understand that this is wrong. And like, just like, they just are going to keep doing this. And that's the part. And because like, and it is a person that like I kind of know. And so then I do feel a little bit more responsible to be able to try to correct this behavior than it would be if it was a complete stranger. And also like the attack was like, it was very much like not with just with paper, but with fists. And so I think in my situation was like a little bit more escalated as well.
Yeah, that's certainly a very, very different context. That's very upsetting. I will say that.
Yes. It was not fun.
No, not how anybody wants to spend a Tuesday. That's for sure.
Yes.
As far as responsibility, this is something I've only changed my view on in the last like year or so, honestly. I used to feel a lot of responsibility for other people, for their feelings, their actions, but this year has really shifted my thinking in sort of understanding, or at least having the perspective of, is this person over 18? Are they my dependent? Do I have a legal responsibility to them? Are they, and if those answers are no, I sort of look at it very radically. And I'll be honest, it took me a really, like, this was a sort of a deliberate mind shift, because I had to sort of really deliberately shift my thinking in this way. It was very hard for me to do that, because I was taking in, I was experiencing so much negative emotions from the activity or feeling from other people, and feeling responsibility to do something and then not knowing how to do. When I started thinking, like, this is not my child, this is a grown adult, what do I think my responsibility as an adult is? You know, I take a lot of radical responsibility being a grown person, being someone over the age of 18. I think that I have to take responsibility for my feelings, for my words, for my actions. And so then I think, if another person is an adult, they're over 18, they're not my dependent, then they have that same responsibility too. And therefore it is not mine. It's not mine to take on. That's been my shift of thinking. It's been a very radical shift for me. But it has helped a lot. I think personally, this is just me. So I'm not saying this is how anybody has to think. I'm not even saying I'm right. But it's been very helpful to me to be able to separate what's mine and what somebody else's. What's my emotion, what's somebody else's emotion, what's my responsibility, what's somebody else's responsibility. Because I often do feel the urge to try to help change this and that. But getting back, like, really down to the brass tacks, I hope I'm not being harsh here. Like, I'm not trying to give you like a speech of being like, this is how you have to do it. But I really, really was suffering by feeling like taking on the responsibility of other people that really is not mine. It's really theirs. It's really their job, and it's their failing, and the consequences that they face, that, like, they're going to have to face. And yes, if they're hurting other people will suffer. That's unfortunate, but that's not my job. Like, they're not my child. And then it helped me identify, well, where is my responsibility? And then I realized, oh, if I have guests, it's my responsibility. I've decided to have them fed and to make sure they're comfortable. So, okay, so now I don't have any dependents. I don't have any children. I'm not married. Technically, there is nobody on this planet who is my responsibility. I don't have any pets. There's technically nobody on this planet who is my responsibility, you know? And so if I choose to help someone, if somebody asks me for help and I say, yes, I can give you these resources. Yes, I can give you this time. That's all voluntary, but it's not my responsibility. And then if they're in my house, I've decided how I want to conduct myself. And I want to make sure they're well fed and they're comfortable and all of these things. But that took a huge load off my shoulder. It took a long time for me to shift that, but I don't know. That's just my strategy. I don't know if that's helpful or useful to you.
I think that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
at some point, like, you have to demarcate, like, where your responsibility ends and where you would like people to be more responsible. But you can't do that with taking on, like, the burden of them needing to, like, improve or not do it wrong. And obviously, like, we want to we want to respond when someone could be potentially violent or cause distress to others within reason, to our own responsibilities. But there's no onus on us to, like, have to put ourselves in danger in order to do so. And I think that then moves into the line where, if you're wanting to take responsibility for that person not harming someone potentially in the future, are you acting with personal justice or ethical justice? Like, are you looking at the situation going, like, I need to do something, otherwise no one else will, or something needs to be done to correct that? And then if you answer the second part, then that turns into, is it a burden on me to go out of my way and take responsibility for someone's lack of it? Or do I simply take my individual responsibility as it should be, like, enshrined on us?
I agree that we are not responsible for the behavior of other people. The vigilantism, where we have to stop a perpetrator, otherwise he will do something. It's a good, like, of course there is some value to that, but with common sense, let's say. Well, with the tools that are appropriate, I would say. Stopping some abuser by pointing out where did he abuse people. That's a good tool, but smashing the abuser with the shovel would be inappropriate.
It reminds me of something my friend Mark Lefebvre always says. It's like, you need to point out evil in the world, and like there's a common moniker of like, evil happens when good men do nothing, and I think that's somewhat true because we feel like that we can do something, and it's within our power, and it's often a lot of the time we can't do anything in the situation at all, so we feel completely powerless when the thing happens. And it's like, well, it's like when people, like I've had friends commit suicide, and so many times afterwards there'll be one or two people say, I wish I knew because I could have stopped it. And like it's just not the case. Like the person's already made up their mind. There's like a milieu of things that go behind it, but it's that idea of like there's a potential power there that the person could act on, but often it's not going to lead to anything. So, but pointing to an issue and saying something needs to be done, that's at least sufficient because you're pointing out either an evil or a good that needs to be done. And hopefully someone's going to step into that place if they have the power.
Yeah, it makes me think of a famous series of studies in social psychology that followed the incident where a woman was slowly murdered over several hours in one of the streets of New York, in a row of streets where there were many flats. So many observers kind of just watched her die and nobody called the police for hours.
The bystander effects. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also sort of think, and it's a point made in the book, I think the preface of the book, where Mahatma Gandhi talks about passive violence, where non-action can be a form of violence. And the example I like to use for that is that child neglect can be a very bad form of child abuse. You don't have to actually hit a child to abuse them. You can just neglect them. That'll do damage by itself. So non-action can be a form of violence. And I actually think that's a more meaningful way to think of passive aggression, is when you're doing harm through inaction rather than just doing harm through, say, verbal insults and stuff. That could be quite an active form of aggression. Where was I going with that? Oh, it's often very difficult to figure out what is it that we as individuals can do that would make a difference, positive or negative or otherwise. And just knowing what would be effective possibly is already difficult. And then, like, if you spend some time doing that, you can think of a long list of things you could possibly do that would be effective in some way. But we only have so much time and resources. And so then budgeting time and resources to all the possible things we could do that would be effective is another challenge. So I just think when it comes to deciding who to take responsibility for or what to take responsibility for, and how to act in the world to add goodness or how to act in the world to subtract badness, is a very complicated set of questions. And like people in different circumstances are going to have different rules of thumb that work for them. So I don't know that I have any rules of thumb. It seems like going very hard individualist and I take care of myself and I expect everyone to take care of themselves seems like an inhuman way to live. Like it breaks down community and it breaks down connection. It seems like needing others and having others need us and being responsible for others and having others feel responsible towards us is part of what feels like a healthy, wholesome relating to other humans. So just saying, well, like all of y'all, you do you alone and I'll do me alone, and then we'll just do ourselves alone, and that's how we're all going to be happy, doesn't seem to me like a attractive lifestyle. But like knowing, okay, how are we going to divvy up responsibility, and who do we allow ourselves to need? Sometimes allowing ourselves to need isn't a choice. Sometimes we're just needy. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I can like really relate with feeling like the bystander and like, oh, like I want to be doing something. That I also like the point about responsibility. Like I think it's like the people who I feel responsibility for are the other people who he might prey on, because like this must be some sort of psychopath or something that just like doesn't care about other people's feelings and just wants like the power of like being able to prevail over someone or something like that. And so it's like this stuff works, I think, when people are willing to cooperate with each other and they have a good sense of compassion for each other. But it's just like when someone has no compassion, like, yeah, that's what I have trouble with knowing how to proceed. But also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like derail this whole chapter with my question. So we can get back to the chapter if that's what everyone.
No, it's a really good topic. I think it's a very complex one, especially since every situation is sort of very different. Like, is this a family member? Is it a neighbor? Is it somebody you're going to see again? Is it a stranger? Is it, like, the complexity of a situation also changes really the appropriateness and what the options are, what your responsibility might be. So no, I'm really glad you brought this up. I think it's a really, really good point. Yeah. I think it's important to talk about, and I wish there were sort of more clear-cut answers, but I think it's very helpful to hear different perspectives and see how you all sort of process through our own personal experiences, through what we're learning. I think it's very helpful. And like, as you were talking, AJ, it's bringing up all these different memories that I have. Oh, well, that experience and this experience, and oh, this person was a family member and this person was a stranger. And it's like, yeah, this is actually very difficult. What do I do? What is my responsibility? Like, I remember having a situation where with somebody in a workplace was like, what did I do?
No, it's okay. You can share after we move on to slides. I agree that we can talk right now. So I made that.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. And I remember, that was such a challenging situation. It's like, this is somebody I work with. Do I take them to court? Do I settle this privately? If I settle it privately, what does it mean for future people he works with? And for a long time, I sat and I pondered, I asked advice. It really was unclear. And to tell you the truth, we ended up working with a mediator and settling things out privately. But there was like a very serious consideration of like, this can happen again. Not only that, I had some information that it had sort of happened before. Yeah. What it would have cost me to have this mediation done in public would have been at least 3 years of my life. And I very seriously looked at this and said, I don't have the resources. Like, I physically cannot, like, yes, I can make that happen if I sacrifice everything else. That doesn't make any sense. Like, what is my end goal here, And that's, we don't always have a perfect answer for things in life. Like, I feel like I got my justice. Did I get justice for the world? No. Was it my job? It's not really a clear answer there. These are very, very complex scenarios. But at the end of the day, I had to take what I had and do what I can. And as well, we can do the best we can. We don't always know how it's going to turn out either. So I think it's important to talk about, but I think it's difficult to know. And I've had this with like people very close to me, family members. What do you do when it's a family member? I think one thing that, like if I had somebody come to me and I knew somebody was like abusive and they said, should I date this person? I would go, no, and here's why. This is a real situation that's happened to me before. I want to send this kid to this school to learn with this person. What do you think about that? Oh, okay, well, let's sit down for this. Actually, here's what I think you need to know. This is actual facts that occurred. Now you make your choice. But in that instance, I had to tell someone, look, this is an adult who's been abusive to children before. It was a really hard conversation to have because it was not public information. Like there were so many reasons I can't really go over it on the internet. You see, even this, it's like, I want to bring in the details so that you can understand the context fully so we can flesh it out. But truly, I can't do that without harming other people. Like without getting their consent of, are you okay with me talking about this? So I think back to Kara's point, it's not always satisfying and we can't always have justice, but like I don't want to say this, AJ, like I hate hearing it come out of my mouth. I don't want to be like the person who's like radical acceptance, just suck it up, baby. It's like, but truly sometimes that's the answer. I think it's worth grappling with. And then I think sometimes, let go and let God, or whatever the case may be, I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful. I'm frustrated myself, Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the route that I've kind of had to take for a similar reason of like, it would just swallow up so much of my resources. And like, I feel like I have better things to do with my life than like try to get revenge or something like that. So yeah, I guess that's like kind of where I'm at, but it makes me very unhappy. In terms of the injustice, and like I would like to know for myself as well, like if this kind of thing ever happens to me again, like what can I do better?
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at I had a really good lawyer who at that time advised me, and she said, look, here you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. But more important than what you can do, what do you want your outcome to be? What do you want your life to look like in 6 months, in 3 years? And I was like, I want justice. And then I realized, actually, if I go to court for 3 years, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be a bitter person for 3 years. This is going to be 80% of my mental space for 3 years. Am I bringing justice, or am I just making myself a more bitter person? And I had to be really, really honest with that, and then I had to be really honest about my resources. And then I had to be really honest that, other adults were not my responsibility, and that every situation is very individual. And, you can take almost the exact identical situation, but make it a different woman, a different person, different, so I sometimes like to think there's no right or wrong. There just is what is. And we do the best we can, Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate all of y'all's input. It at least helps to talk about it, even if I don't have all the answers.
Yeah. Karen, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah,
Sorry.
hold on. I'm thinking about the person throwing paper balls in a public transportation situation. Like it's knowing myself, I would probably be like, what would make that person do that? So depending of how threatening or unthreatening he looked, I would actually ask, dude, why? Like, it's okay. Like, tell me why. You can keep throwing the balls, like they do not harm me. They just litter the transport, but just like, let me know why. But if he looks like he was a psychopath who will just jump at me, I would be, there is a bias here about New York. I actually am, if it's in New York, I would be like, if it's in Warsaw, I would ask why. If it's in New York, I would be scared because I heard stories about New York. I have seen people grilling rats on the street and stuff like that. I don't know if it's true. Like,
No, you're right about the New York bias, and that's it. It may not have even been wise for me to talk to him the way that I did, quite
yeah.
frankly. Yeah.
Oh, you talked to him?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you talked to the guy next to you.
Both. I
Oh.
was so pissed. I talked to him first. I was like, dude, what is your problem? Why are you doing this? And he just nothing. He looked at me and smiled and threw another one.
Oh, he felt really good because you asked.
He got the attention.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He got my response. He got me angry.
Oh.
You know. Yeah. And then the guy next to him. Yeah. And then I talked to the guy next to him. Yeah. And by the way, in that situation, the first thing that came to my mind was the bystander effect. And I was like, oh, this is like a real life thing. That's crazy, you know, because I was thinking back to that study as well. It's like, wow. At least then I was grateful I was on the subway in a public place. But at the same time, I was like, holy cow. I'm seeing the bystander effect. Like, thank God he's not being violent, but I'm seeing the bystander effect. Okay, this is another time. I'm on the subway and this guy starts yelling at me. It's a crowded subway. There's got to be at least 40 people on the car. And he starts yelling, he's cursing, this, that, racial slurs, everything. So clearly he's not on the, you know, there's something wrong. You know, he's not somebody who could be reasoned with. And again, very bystander effect. And that was more like, he didn't touch me, but he got close to me. He put his face in front of my face. I was just like, you know, nobody really did anything. I tried to kind of move away. And like that time I did not talk to him. I was scared. Like, it's not a situation. There was another woman who took herself and put her body directly between mine and his. I was just like, holy cow, you are my hero. What are you doing right now? Like, and somehow that worked. She looked at him dead in the eye. She was like, don't you dare bother her, or something like this. And he just muttered and walked off. And I was just like, this woman, she's got some, holy cow, you know, that's terrifying. But again, there was like 40 other people there, a bunch of men, you know, a bunch of other people. And it was some like 20-something-year-old woman who like, and she was like shorter than me, you know? So I don't know. It's really kind of crazy.
I wouldn't say a
That is,
bunch of
like,
men. I'd say a bunch of boys.
A bunch of
Who
boys.
doesn't-
Yeah. This really informed, like it so colored my idea of dating in New York at that point, because as I continued having these experiences with like regular men, I was just like, I can't, it's so hard for me to respect people at this point and be like, you know, I don't know. It was frustrating. It definitely was healthy for me to move out of the city. I'll say that. I think these things happen more in big cities.
Yeah, the way that woman did that's like so incredible. I pray to have that kind of courage that she had. Like, that's amazing that she did that. That's, oh my God.
Right?
So
It was incredible. I think but okay, I saw this to what Nerdalliun was saying about comedy. I saw this amazing video on YouTube years ago, and it's like my favorite video, which again, it's a New York subway, similar situation. Two guys fighting, a woman and man fighting, they're getting violent. Some dude just casually walks along. He's got a bag of potato chips, places himself right in between the two of them. They're yelling at each other. I'm gonna this, I'm gonna that. And he's just like, eating his potato chips. And somehow it worked. It worked. It was just the most...
It just diffuses all the tension. Like he just moves in and it's like, yeah, no, not now. And they're just like, okay, and back off. There's like that air of hostility between them. Put like a little break in there, and it's sort of like that extra like consciousness there is like, are we fighting them or what? Like, are we fighting each other? There's something twigs, and it makes people like at least stop and think for a second.
I'm trying to see if I can find the video. Oh, here it is. Can we play it? It's 2 minutes.
Depends. If it's another creator, then I might be flagged for copyrights. It's like oh my god. I have to remove some things. Oh, come on. What? Who is my moderator? The moderator. What? No, he's not a moderator. Oh my god.
What's up now?
Is there violent communication in the chat?
Remove moderator. I gave, instead of removing a spammer, I made him a moderator.
Oh no.
It's very, very non-violent communication.
It's very generous. Oh, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow. Can you change it? That's hilarious.
Like,
Ask if he wants to do line by line.
oh my god. Put user in timeout. Okay. Yes, I put user in.
Okay, I found the video. It's like a 1 minute clip. I don't think it'll get flagged.
I don't know. You can try. It's just in case it's flagged, I will just cut it out of the stream. Yeah.
Are you sure? I don't want to. I don't want to jeopardize your channel in any way. I don't know how these things work.
Okay. So when you share, there is at the bottom left will be like a button for the sound, so that you share with the sound, just in case.
Okay. Hold on. Share. Bottom left. Switch. Where it says the mute button. Same as system. Same as system.
No, when you share it, there is like you have to like choose an option to share with the sound.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you for having patience with me. I'm still learning. Okay. So can you guys see can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let's play.
Whoa.
Go ahead. On your merry way. Don't fucking follow me, stupid dick. No. You. On your merry way. You. Don't hit her. Don't follow me, stupid son of a bitch. Do not follow me. No, please do. No. This is not happening. You're not gonna hit a woman. Not follow me. Already so many times. Okay, do not follow me. Okay, ma'am. No. You need to stop following me. So get on another car. When this train stops, do not follow me anymore. Do not follow me. Okay, she's told you. Follow me.
We got you on camera. Don't follow.
Do not follow me.
We got you.
When we stop again, get off. Okay, do not follow me. Please get off. Please, sir, get off. Please get off.
What a situation.
That is so cool. Applause for that guy. For real, like that.
Did you see that? But he deliberately put himself in front, right in the middle of them. And he's just like, but that's when they started talking. That's when the hitting stopped. You know?
Yes, absolutely. That's so cool that he had the courage to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my camera right now.
Oh, that's okay.
With me? Or with
The
camera?
Is it like dark?
Oh, it's okay. I think it's internet connection.
Oh, maybe. I actually have a story that's like kind of similar. And I was on a bus where someone was getting yelled at because they were trans, and I was one of the bystanders. I wish I would have had the courage to be able to like stand in front of this person, but like I was also afraid of getting hit. And yeah, I regret that a lot. Especially like I'm a queer person myself, so to hear someone get attacked for being queer, like this, like it really upset me, but I didn't know what to do. And yeah, I can really applaud that courage because I didn't have it myself in that situation.
I think it's very important in these situations to sort of take account of and know and understand what your tools and abilities are. Clearly, that man was very confident, and he probably had a reason to be. He probably could have taken down the other guy if he wanted to, and he knew that. Like the confidence comes from somewhere. Obviously, he had a lot of like internal courage as well. But if I were to put myself in front of that situation, I would say that would probably be stupid. I think that would be a good evaluation and say, no, I don't have the ability to actually physically match up what I'm doing right now, you know? So I think that's important to know and be aware of like which situation you can physically help in and which, if you need to, and which one you're not, you don't have that capability. Keep studying the Tai Chi.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like I need to practice my jiu-jitsu a little bit more, so that way I can take someone like that down.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing, Nerdalliun?
No, the thought of someone being all confident because of their Tai Chi practice is very funny to me.
Don't knock the Tai Chi people.
That's for old people with arthritis. It's not for fighting.
They step in, they do the Viveki old man stroking beard. It's like, just you wait.
Well, actually, I think Tai Chi in that kind of martial arts, I think I actually respect that a whole lot, to be able to kind of manipulate energies or something like that in a way that maybe disarms people in a less than physical way. That's actually the thing that got me into martial arts. Was I had a dream where I was being attacked, and this like ninja or something wearing all black came, and like they didn't even hit the person, they just like waved their arms and they disarmed the person, and the person like they went off to like get food or something like that, and I was like completely safe and they didn't even attack. So that like I actually have more respect for that than someone who would need to attack a person.
But I actually heard someone use something like that. There was a UK comedian, Charlie Brooker. He was telling a story about his friend of his who was like almost attacking in the street, and instead of running away or fighting the guy, he just looked at his hand and shouted, "Spiders! There's spiders everywhere!" And the guy just like freaked out. It's like, what the fuck? And he just started walking over to the guy, and it's like, oh, I'm getting out of here. And in the instant moment, the guy went from like, I'm going to attack this guy to like, is he going to attack me? Like this guy isn't like sane in the head.
How crazy him.
Yeah, that's what's really fascinating to me, is that there can be ways to like non-violently disarm someone who is violent.
Yeah. Well, the potato chip guy, he ended up going on all the television stations in New York. Everybody wanted to hear about it. What were you thinking? You know? Yeah. And by the way, guys, I want to apologize. I didn't remember how violent that clip was. So I should have given a warning, but it was pretty heavy.
I forgot that it was that violent too. Like I fully remembered like what happened, but I didn't remember like they shouted that much, and like the guy got like a good few hits in, as well as the woman.
I just remembered the potato chips. That's the only thing I remembered.
That guy was so good, he made it into my stream.
Yeah, but I think it is really interesting to look at all these different tactics that we can use.
Yeah, luckily, being Australian, diplomacy works quite a lot because it's such a laissez-faire approach to like conflict that if someone is actually going to attack you and fight you, they'll just attack you. But most of the time, when someone's just being violent, it can be dissolved by like the mateship type approach, being like, "Oh, you're right, mate. It looks like you need a beer." And it's just like, oh yeah. And they
Yeah.
sort of like gets everyone onto your level at that in that way, or like offering them a smoke. It's there's been so many people like I've been in the capital city here for like many years, and I've been told by so many people like, "Oh, aren't you afraid of walking like the streets at 3 a.m. from nightclubs? Like, isn't it dangerous? Don't people get stabbed?" And like, no, I've never seen a fight ever. And the only time I saw someone get like physically close to assaulted, so being arrested outside a strip club, and they were clearly drunk and it was their own fault. But every other time, I've been around people who've almost been aggressive, and you can just diffuse it by being like, "How can I like not?" It's like, "How can I solve your problem?" And it's my responsibility to. It's like, what's something we have a commonality with, and a lot of the time it's just like, "Do you want a cigarette? Do you want a beer? Or how about we like go for a walk or something?" It's just like, "Oh, do you want to go to the 7-Eleven? I need to get some chewing gum." Like, "Oh yeah, okay." And it's that sort of addressing them as almost your equal, even though they're trying to be superior in that state and time by being aggressive and trying to take control. That can sort of make it a passive situation rather than actively aggressive.
It's like that candy commercial. What is it? Snickers or Twitch? I can't remember. If you guys have seen it, where he's all cranky and he's a monster, and then the guy goes, "Have a Snickers bar," and then all of a sudden he turns into like a civilized person.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
Snickers.
Snickers. Do you need? It's like, do you need a nap? You know.
No.
Yeah, a nap will sort me out if I'm feeling grumpy.
That's what New York City
here,
needs.
saying to someone like, "Oh, you need to lie down, mate." That'll cause them to be more angry. It's like not only are you sort of trying to get them to stop fighting you, you're saying like, "You're just cranky. You just go and have a sleep because you're a little baby."
Yeah. No, but that's really cool. And I think you're right. Like culturally, it's very cool that culturally you know that you can find this common ground of where that person is, and that they probably don't actually want to get violent. They're just a little sort of ticked off, you know, and that de-escalation makes more sense there. Whereas New York needs like nap pods. New York needs like a bunch of nap pods on every corner, basically. That's what would fix that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Smelly nuts of New York. I was thinking, I just imagined the Australian approach in Ireland. And so there is this brawl, and like people just come out and they're looking, they're buzzed up and they're looking for a fight, and they come and they push and they push, and like, "Are you all right, mate? Do you need a beer?" And they're like, and like, "Wow, not an English."
It's funny you say that.
Wrong joke.
I had my friend from the UK come over to go clubbing with me for the first time, and he comes back after like hours of being like the dance floor, the smokers area, and he's like, "Oh, it's interesting. Like the one person I meet from the UK tonight was an Irish guy, and he was blind drunk, and he dropped his beer into me, and he didn't try and fight me. He went, 'Oh, mate, let me buy you another one, eh?'" He was like, he wanted to bond on like, "I want you to get drunk as well, rather than like, I'm drunk and it's your problem, so I'm going to fight you." And it's like Australians and Scottish people and the Irish get like along really well with the drinking culture, even though you'd think it would just make you only aggressive, which is sort of sad in a way. You have to bond with such a hard drug like alcohol.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear your story.
Sorry, AJ. I've seen yesterday Belgium and Australian Americans bond.
Very true. Yeah, it's really cool to hear your stories about diffusing the situations. It's cool that you're able to do that. I always sometimes I feel like I don't know what to say, but it's cool that you have the wherewithal to be able to diffuse.
I think the point I was going to make as well earlier is like being a man and being able to approach these situations is a lot different from being a woman, because I feel like we were afforded like a few more options. in how to like, if someone attacks us on the street, like, yes, you could just run away or like have the flight or fight, sort of like fight them back. But diplomacy is also more open, I think. One of the reasons being like, if we get attacked, it's unlikely it's going to be lethal or could be lethal. So there's not that sort of danger of like, am I fighting for my life at this moment? And I think not having to really process that a lot of the time, you can look at the 3-4 options in front of you and non-violent forms of communication, be like, okay, should I like pay them a compliment to try and calm them down? And that could work, or like cracking a joke. But I wouldn't suggest that like women do that, because likely the guy's just going to be crazy, and if you try and like crack a one-liner, then it's not going to like stop them. So it's an unfortunate reality, but I think it's the way things are.
Yeah, that does really hit home for me. Yeah, I think like to see women as an easy target sometimes, and also like I also feel like women are taught to be able to react like in certain ways. Like I felt when I started jujitsu, like I felt so free and like, oh, like finally like I'm able to use my body in this way that like I haven't been socialized to use my body before. And that was like a whole like hugely opening up experience for me. But also the experience about the story about the subway, like that really struck me as like probably like a very like sexist attack, like the fact that it was 2 men picking on a woman, like that. Yeah, like they probably assumed that you were an easy target and that you weren't going to do anything, and that's probably why they chose you as someone to annoy.
Yeah, I mean, just contextually, had they picked on a man, they'd be picking for a physical fight.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas for me, that would be really, yeah, that would be a really stupid way for me to respond to that situation.
Yeah.
Because I would not be coming out on top.
Right. Yeah, like it definitely can, like in my situation, like I definitely did feel like I was like running for my life at that point. So yeah, it's definitely a scary reality.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just like, guys, do not read out the names in the chat out loud. I learned it a long time ago from Twitch. They're all funny. They're hilarious, guys. All of you with all your really, really very, very smart names. Happy birthday. I give you all shout out. It's like your names are censored. Yeah, but thank you for stopping by. I appreciate the views. I need it.
I have another interesting situation where I was in the park in New York, Riverside Park, Riverside Drive. So it's a big park, and it's right along the river. And when I went, it was light out, and sunset was really early that day. I didn't realize, and it got dark like in 5 minutes. And I like, as soon as it got dark, I started heading out, but I still had another like 10-15 minutes to leave the park. And at that moment, I realized there's this guy, and he's kind of, you get the vibe, and he's looking at me. And then as soon as I stand up, he stands up, and I'm like, oh, and I start walking and he starts walking. And I'm just like, all right, this again, And so it didn't immediately, I was like, yeah, well, I'm leaving anyways. And it was one of those things where like 10 minutes before, it seemed like there was a bunch of people around. And then within a couple minutes, it was like, I looked around, I'm like, where did everybody go? Like, it's literally like, poof, all of a sudden there's nobody here. And I was like, okay, my alarm bells are going off. So I quickly start walking to the quickest to get back to the street, and, because once you're on the street, there's a ton of people. I can go into a building, but at that point, after 2-3 minutes, I see, yes, he's definitely following me. Like I made a turn, he made the turn. I made another turn, he makes another turn. He was still far away enough, but he was catching up. I'm like, oh, okay. Ahead, I see there's a group of 3 people walking. They're about the same distance from me in front of me as he is behind me. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay, I can catch up. It's like two girls, two women, and a man. And this is a really funny story because so I quickened my pace because at that point it was clear he was following me. So I wasn't pretending to not notice. At this point, I was like, he could know I'm onto him. You know, like you try to play it cool, but at this point I was like, he knows, I know he knows, he knows I know, you know, okay. I could pretend I can run. I go really quickly up. I go, hi guys. Oh, I haven't seen you in such a long time. I'm like, please pretend you know me, please. You know, because it's like two women. So I'm like, okay, you know, and you know, I'm like, can we leave the park together? This guy's following me. They look, they're like, oh, creepy. You know, they're like, yeah, come with us, come with us. And they like, we walk out of the park and we, you know, we're chatting, we're talking the whole time. I'm like, is he still there? You know, and but they walked me home. I was pretty close. Oh, I'm hearing some feedback. Is that me? No, okay. And as we're walking, it was so funny. So that was the end of it. He disappeared. He was gone. I was safe. We start talking. This girl, one of the women, I call her girl because she was like 18 and she looked so young. But she turns out we grew up in the same hometown, and I went to school with her sister, her older sister. You know, I'm like, what are the odds? I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen your sister in like a decade and a half. Tell her I say hi. Thank you for saving my life. You know, like we went to elementary school together. It was just it was so funny. But, you know, that's another one of those things where you like, you know, you can ask someone, you could pretend to know somebody, and thank God that worked. And it happened to be somebody who actually knew who I was, which was kind of crazy in New York City. That doesn't really happen. But yeah, I think for women, we have to often be a lot more creative, because if a man picks a fight with another man, he's picking a physical fight. He's getting himself into trouble, you know? So it's not a smart tactic on his part. But if he picks a fight with a woman, you know, it's sort of like a one-up situation, usually, always. So we have to be a little more creative sometimes.
Yeah.
So do we have another screen, the slide?
We do. Yes. Okay. Share screen. Oh, we lose AJ. Okay. Okay, so this is okay, she's gonna see if she can fix her camera. I feel like I have to watch some kitten videos after watching that subway confrontation. I'm like a little wired. I'll watch some kitten videos later. So here's a good exercise. It's a couple of examples where we can look at and see if it's oh, look at the kitten. Andre coming through. Oh, so cute. Okay, that was very helpful, actually. Kittens to calm down our nervous system. Okay, so here, the exercise here is this an observation or is it an evaluation? So AJ, I don't know if you caught the first half of the stream, but we were identifying if the sentences we tell people, again, in a preventative or cooperative manner, not in a violent situation, if it's a pure observation of fact, which it's much easier to get a non-defensive response and cooperation for another person, or is it an evaluation or a judgment of something that someone did or you've seen? So the exercise here is to just see if we can determine whether each of these are an observation or evaluation. So Kara, why don't you grab the first one?
Sure. Okay. The beach is beautiful. Oh, well, to me, it is both observation and evaluation somehow. But like, because beautiful is a statement of appraisal, but because it's a beach, and it's my opinion, like I would say, if I would say, oh, I think this beach is amazing, the best, beautiful, but I will keep it as observation, even though it's my opinion. It is an evaluation though, but because it's a beach, so I will fail here.
You choose to fail. Correct. That is a fail. I agree. It's a trick question, right? Because how could you say the beach is not beautiful? But an observation would be the beach has sand on it. You know, it is a sunny day on the beach.
I knew it.
Yeah. Sorry. I know it's a tough one because it's just so beautiful. Okay. All right. Nerdalliun, why don't you pick number 2? And then we can do Andre and AJ.
All right, sure. John was angry with me yesterday for no reason. So that seems like an evaluation mostly. The no reason is definitely an evaluation. The angry may or may not be an evaluation or like an interpretation. If they just straight up told you they were angry at me, but then the pure observation would be they told me they were angry at me. Oh yeah, so it's not a pure observation.
Correct. On both. Yeah. A pure observation would be John slammed the door. Right. John told me he was angry. Yeah.
Yesterday evening, Nancy bit her fingernails whilst watching television. It's an observation.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do number 4. Sam didn't ask for my opinion during the meeting. Observation, I think. Feels like a trick question, but I think it's an observation. Because he didn't. Let me see if I'm right. Yeah, it's an observation. Yeah.
I had a little comment I wanted to make earlier about people getting defensive and less defensive at observations. I think language is not the only thing that matters. Like intonation can also matter a lot. If you're like really annoyed at someone, you didn't ask for my opinion yesterday, they're gonna feel attacked. Like even if it's an observation, because kind of tone of voice and body language is aggressive. So
yeah, and non-verbal communication trumps verbal communication. So you can use the perfect verbal communication, but if your non-verbal isn't matching up with it, it's going to override it every time. I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
The prosody of speech, being like, it's a good day today. Person's going to be like,
okay.
The semantic content's like, yeah.
Have fun out there. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like I'm being threatened. Okay. AJ, why don't you go for number 5? If it's an observation, if you think it's observation or evaluation, and why?
My father is a good man. I think that would be an evaluation. It's hard to define what exactly good means or what it was that had the goodness attributed to it.
Yes. Okay. Kara, maybe you can grab number 6.
Yeah. Janice works too much. Evaluation. Like, should I explain it too much? Janice isn't, but too much is definitely an evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a relative.
Henry is aggressive. I think that's not observation, because you're not evaluating his state. You're just observing his state. If you were saying he's too aggressive, then you're evaluating it, because you're putting some sort of like a qualifier on a quantifier. There's an amount of aggressive it can be, rather than just he is.
So you're saying you think it's an you think which one it is?
It's 7. It's observation. Observing his aggressive. Evaluating is like processing how aggressive he is. 'Cause
Okay,
you're making a judgment on that you could be more or less.
Yeah, I think this is a tricky one. The book says, the author says, I consider aggressive to be an evaluation. An observation without evaluation might be Henry hit his sister when she switched the television channel. So the author is saying even, yeah, I thought this one was tricky too. But he's saying it's not specific enough. It's not factual enough. It kind of is in the category of my father is a good man. What does aggressive mean? Aggressive will mean different things to different people.
Yeah, I think this one's like a very like, it goes to the basis of like truth, truth and rationalities, because one is saying this thing happened, this thing happened, this thing happened, and then aggressive, I think they're inferring is like being aggressive would be causal from those events. So what a thing is, like you can look at an object and say, well, that was a thing that happened, that was an empirical event, versus saying you are like this mood. You don't exactly know the person's that mood. You can infer that they have that mood from their behavior, but it's not empirical enough really to say like this is concrete facts. So I think in that way, that's where the evaluation comes in.
Yeah, it's kind of like the other day my sister looked at me and she goes, what's wrong? Is something wrong? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, your face. I was like, what's wrong with my face? Oh, you look like you're in a bad mood. I was like, no, just there's nothing happening here right now. I'm not in a bad mood. Oh, okay, I just thought. So I think aggressive, yeah, it's just the outer appearance. Somebody might think I'm angry, but I may not actually be angry. Let's say Nechama is angry. Nechama looks angry. Maybe Nechama looks angry. Can that be an observation? I don't know. Even that's sort of relative.
Well, it's evaluating it. So because you were saying you appear to be angry, but you can't concretely state that like you are angry.
Right.
You're going off like a sense perception. Like I judge you to be like, I judge you to be looking sad. Doesn't mean that you know that someone is sad. And we can tell this in like psychology from focal affect. So a lot of people like have depression or anxiety will have an opposite facial expression to how they actually feel internally. You can have a bit like I've been in the midst of panic attack at times in my doctor's clinic, and I've had him say, "Oh, you're looking better these days. Like, do you have a good day?" I'm like, "No, like I need Valium right now. Like I'm panicking." It's like, "Oh, don't look like it."
Right. And so the parents isn't really an indication of what is actually happening. Yeah.
He's really bad at observing, though. That's evaluation.
No, but I've had similar, like Andre, I've been in the hospital for, I went to my doctor. I was super, super ill at some point, and I go to him and he goes, you look wonderful. You look super healthy. I'm like, okay, but I feel really, really, something's terribly wrong. He goes, you look fine. Let me send you for a CAT scan. Half an hour later, I'm on the street. I get into the place with the CAT scan. I flat out faint on the floor. I like the nurses find me, like I fainted on the hallway. They find me and this and that. Turns out I was in septic shock. Like my life was actually in danger. I nearly died. But my doctor was like, you look great today. I'm like, okay, I put on makeup. You know, I did a really good job with my makeup. Maybe I shouldn't put makeup on next time I come to the doctor. You know, it's like you really can't tell what is happening internally from the external appearance. So yeah, definitely relate to that.
I've definitely have had similar experiences when like I'm like really depressed and people tell me, oh, like it doesn't look like you act like nothing wrong. It's like, yes, there's something wrong. But I mean, as far as like the Henry's aggressive thing, like I guess the observation would be like describing his actual behavior. Like, oh, Henry is like quickly approaching me and is yelling and swinging his arms or something like that. Henry is like invading my personal space. Henry is making me feel unsafe, something like that. I think those would be observations, right?
Yeah. I think if you take it to like a personal scenario, like in the home, let's say, you're talking to someone, you go, if I tell someone who, is my relative in my house, you're being so aggressive today. It's like, okay, that's one thing. Or I noticed you slammed the door 3 times today. That's interesting, so there's, because they could say, I'm not aggressive. What are you talking about? But yeah, you did slam the door. So what's going on with that? I think that's where it's sort of trying to train us for a little bit of a more helpful starting point. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll do 8. Pam was first in line every day this week. Definitely an observation. Also, I'm definitely not a Pam. I'm going to be sleeping in. Yeah, I think that one's pretty straightforward. AJ, you want to grab 9?
Sure. My son doesn't often brush his teeth. That I think would be an observation.
Yeah, the book agrees
often
with you.
was not precise enough, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kara. Even though the book says it's an observation, but I agree the word often is still a bit too iffy.
But I think with the often, it's like you're not using that as evaluation. It's just a broad term. Because if it was a term where it was more of a judgment call in, saying like you brush your teeth too much, then you're evaluating like what is the right level of brushing. Whereas often is this, it could be like a couple of times a day, or it could be like 5 times a day, and the definition of where often starts. That's the broad thing, but it's still an observation at large, I think.
What do you think,
just
Kara?
imagine that thing where I like after we finish the stream and I'm going around and like observation, evaluation. I'm so good at it, like observation, evaluation.
You should know, after I made the slides, I actually started doing that with my sister. Poor thing.
No, that's amazing. By the way, Nechama, it's like amazing. You did a great job on the slide.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun with it. I have all these beautiful pictures. I have nothing to use them for. So that was fun.
Did you take those pictures?
Oh
my God, all of them are yours. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that beach is beautiful. Evaluation.
It definitely, I can tell you factually, it is, well, evaluation. Yeah.
Did a great job. Evaluation.
Kara, funnily enough, my sister actually read this book, believe it or not.
I believe it.
Yeah. It was amazing. So that was she knew what I was talking about.
I don't know your sister, but I shout out to your sister.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I lost track of who we're up to. I'll do number 10. Luke told me I didn't look good in yellow. Yeah, I think this is an observation. Also, Luke is a little bit rude, unless I asked.
That's a really interesting one, though, because it's like an observation of an evaluation.
Yeah, I would think it's an evaluation, because he's telling you like opinion of how he thinks you to be. It would be an observation if it was like an objective truth or objective fact that you just can't look good in yellow, but you looking good in yellow is based upon like what other people think of you. So it's because you can also have an evaluation of how you think you look good in yellow. You can't observe it.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead, AJ.
Oh, it's like I observed that Luke evaluated me.
That's what it is. It's a tricky one. Because Luke did evaluate that you don't look in yellow. I don't look in yellow. But my observation is he told me I don't look in yellow. So it's a trick.
So it's like
yeah.
one layer above, right? Am I doing the last one? The YouTube bucket. My aunt complains when I talk with her. Observation.
The word complain, I think to me is a bit of a tricky one because it's like that. What the word complain might be an evaluation. I don't know if a more observational word would be like, my aunt like, I don't know if there's like a better way to describe the way that she says something like, my aunt speaks negatively when I talk to her or something like that. I don't know. Does anyone else have a comment?
I think no, it will still make sense to have it as complaints because it's a bit almost biased as speech in that word, but having a complaint like it is a thing it can have without it. You're saying like we call it speech if you say like you're just complaining about what I'm doing. If you disagree with someone, saying that someone has a complaint against something, if they genuinely do, you're just observing that. But yeah, it's. I think that term is a bit loaded.
Nerdalliun, you were trying to say?
Yeah, it's a little difficult. I do think complaints is a verb that has evaluative connotations to it, but to try to clear it out of like all the evaluative connotations would like require a fairly clunky phrase. I'm trying to think of phrases. So expresses dissatisfaction, which maybe a little more neutral than complain. Actually, a thing I wanted to say earlier is it's very difficult to speak in a way that's completely free of any evaluative connotation. And I don't know that it's I don't know how useful or desirable it is to try to clear evaluation out of speech entirely. And I actually also don't know how easy it is to cleanly separate language into two categories, either observations or evaluations, because a lot of times they're mixed. They're an observation and I guess the whole point of the chapter is that we often speak in ways in which the observation and the evaluation is mixed, and it's helpful to tease them apart. But I don't know if they can absolutely be teased apart. Like in absolute terms, you just have pure observations that nowhere has even implied in the background evaluations. I don't think that's possible. Is at a basic level, deciding what to include in a statement and what to exclude already requires evaluation of sort of the information of the content, and it makes assumptions about purposes of communication. And so there's all sorts of evaluation going on most of the time. And most evaluations can also be thought of as a form of observation. Like evaluation is quite similar to perception in the way it works in the brain. Sorry, I'm going off on a long tangent here, but I just think tricky cases will be quite common given the complexity of trying to squeeze statements into just these two categories, either observations or evaluations. I think there are a lot of things that it's going to be difficult to tease them apart, and sometimes it's going to be difficult to take a situation where they are mixed and then to disambiguate them. And I don't know how useful that always will be. I don't think it always will be useful. I think sometimes trying to overcomplicate things can make communication less effective.
Right. In that 11th one, what stood out to me is the word when. So when, does this mean every time he talks to her is broadened? It's too broad. Complaints is it's an actual thing. She's like, comes and it's like, oh, this happened, like she keeps doing it. But is it each time? So the word when would indicate misleadingly that every time. That's, I think, is an evaluation, but based not on the word complain, but on the word when.
Yeah, that's an so those are both interesting points. I agree with you, Kara, about the when sort of generalizing as opposed to the complaint. And I think you have a good point, Nerdalliun, because like when the book's example of this, like how you would observe this sentence, really does get into like it's so nitty gritty. It says, "My aunt called me 3 times this week, and each time talked about people who treated her in ways she didn't like." It's like, okay, that's very wordy. And if I'm talking to someone, they know what the word complain is. Like sometimes you want to use the evaluation, or the word complain is general enough that it maybe isn't an evaluation in this case. So yeah, I think it's a good, I think that's true. I think the goal isn't to completely be observational because we'd sort of walk around like robots. It's not always appropriate. But I think the exercise to sort of differentiate like and get used to the idea and at least be aware of like, oh, okay, maybe I'm evaluating, I can be a little more specific. You know, you're not always selfish. You're not, oh, you know, so just, but yeah, I think it can get a little too nitty gritty sometimes. And sometimes it's really hard to extrapolate out because like, yeah.
If you want to be excessively pedantic and nerdy, you can even complain about Rosenberg in his statements of uncertainty, not defining probability sample spaces and probability distributions over sample spaces. Like you're not being clear enough when you said something's likely. Exactly how likely do you mean? Do you mean like 45% agree? And what sample space are you like? You can completely overdo it.
Right.
And then, so you don't want to overdo it. So you want to kind of compress your communication. And sometimes compressing it means like using the word complaint rather than a long sentence. And sometimes it means calling someone selfish when they don't take time to consider other people's needs. They act in ways that are harmful to others and they don't care about them. You can make a whole long list of things that they do that the people around you have also had a chance to observe. And you can just say, yeah, like we're in agreement. That person's selfish, right? Like, yeah, we get it. And sometimes that's kind of evaluative language or like mixed language with an like it'll pass for an observation. I think if there's enough examples and other people have observed that too, you call someone selfish, and people would just be like, yeah, fact, even though it's evaluative too. And you can disambiguate it and then go through specific examples like at 3 a.m. they did, or 3 p.m. they did this and this, and at 4 p.m. they did this and this, and it gets too much at some point.
The book had a really interesting example where it talked about it was like a principal and all the teachers thought he was a big mouth and they all were in consensus, like you used the word selfish. They all understood the behavior that they didn't like from him, but when they expressed that to him, like when they said, oh, the principal is a big mouth, they all knew what they were like, oh, yep, he's a big mouth. But when they expressed it to him, he didn't know what that meant. So he couldn't stop the behavior because he couldn't identify what he was doing that was making him a big mouth. So in that instance, until like they were able to pull out the observation of exactly, oh, you kind of go on these long tangents and tell these stories that have nothing to do with what we're talking about. He goes, oh yeah, you're right, I do that. My wife tells me all the time. Now he knew. So sometimes it is for the benefit of the other person because everybody else knows but them what you mean by selfish. Other times, yeah, I think the linguistic shortcut can be helpful. Yeah, so I think in that case, it's just a matter of discernment. And when is being too pedantic is not helpful for the situation.
As a general strategy, I find sort of beginning with broad statements and then drilling into detail as it's necessary in the conversation for like the task at hand. So if like in the school principal's example, they're having school meetings that aren't as productive as they need to be. So they run over time and it annoys people and people are dissatisfied with the meeting. So like there's a task that's improve the meetings and then sort of getting specific into details about how can we improve these meetings. And the meetings have like criteria for evaluating what a good meeting might look like and getting clear what that evaluative criteria might look like could be helpful. But oftentimes we make evaluative statements where the task at hand is less clear. Or we make statements where the task at hand is less clear, and then getting super detailed about all the ways in which we could do something better when we haven't agreed that that's actually what we're doing here can also be unhelpful. And so then sticking to vague general stuff at first, and if someone else expresses interest, I'm curious, like that's what you said, seems like there's it resonates with me, but I'm not sure I'm like exactly understand it. Can we drill into more detail there? So yeah, beginning broad and then drilling into detail as it's necessary and helpful, rather than going full detail all the time.
Full throttle. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can see this in stuff like people doing dream analysis, because from what you're saying, like the fuzziest thing we can sort of have is a dream, because when we live it out, it feels real, but the next day it's like, well, I had this sort of movie thing happen in my head, but I can't prove that it happened, and it like I don't know exactly what happened. There was like this imagery and this imagery, and I thought I saw this, but when what we're actually doing is trying to say we observed like a phenomenological event that is sort of murky and cloudy, but we treat it evaluatively in the way that we connect it to like our life narrative and go like, well, it must mean something because we don't know why it's there, and you shift from like the observation to the evaluative, and try and contain it in the one, rather than most people will not just stick to one or the other, because you can't have dream analysis without saying the dream existed, because it just doesn't work. But also a lot of people just don't say this thing happened to me whilst I was asleep. I'm not going to put a name to it, and it keeps happening. There needs to be some evaluation that happens between those two.
Yeah, I want to, you know what that makes me think of? Like, I want to point out, like, evaluation is very, like, valuable. Like, we're meaning-making creatures. The beach is beautiful. If I didn't have the ability to, like, see and acknowledge and judge the beach for being beautiful, like, why would I even be there? You know? So I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Andre, I'm not sure how I got that from what you were saying, but somehow I did. I hope I didn't derail you there.
No, it wasn't derailed. I was thinking that saying the beach is beautiful, like it's with such visual creatures that like people couldn't really deny that. But if you go to the opposite spectrum and take like a Germanic Wittgenstein type approach, go like, oh, the beach exists, it is there, like it makes living too cold to say things are facts. Like, yeah, that's there. Like, this thing happens. Like, we have to
Let's
evaluate.
go to the place with the sand and
Yeah.
and the liquid in the, you know, it's like, okay, well,
we're traveling down this road and we're traveling to the other road. We have to drive up the one road to get to the other road where it connects.
it's true. Pure observation just pulls all the beauty out of life, all the meaning, all of the good stuff. Yeah.
Yes, so that goes back to the point I made earlier about the purpose of the communication. Like if a poet is writing poetry that's meant to like inspire and awe people, it makes sense for them to like mix observations and evaluations in creative and beautiful ways. It can be difficult when like negotiating conflict when those things are mixed. So yeah, like it's important to keep the purpose of communication in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. And I also think that it can be like when we are trying to speak in a more observational way, it can be very difficult to like break the habits of speaking in an evaluatory way. I was just thinking about some instances where it's like so valuable to be able to talk in that observational way versus an evaluative way. Like I've definitely felt in terms of like, I definitely felt like people have evaluated me and judged me when I wish that they would have had more of an observational way. And so that way, like for example, I messed up and they say, oh, you're a bad person, you're irresponsible because you messed up. And I would say, I agree I messed up. I messed up because I was stressed out and I couldn't like ask for help. And if I would have been able to ask for help, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But instead, like you come and judge me, like now I can't ask you for help. And yeah, so yeah, I just think like it can be like, I was just thinking about like the ways that that's like so valuable to be able to speak in observation versus evaluation.
Hang on a second, guys.
I was always translating to myself, not always, but even before I read the book, when people talked, I was sorting in my brain what is a fact and what is evaluation, opinion, whatever. Evaluation is a nice word. And that would help me to sometimes to keep clearer perspective on everything that is going on. So let me close for a second the stream so we have more people. Like that. Yeah. There was the story about somebody not even describing the situation, but instead, while being angry at something going on in his life, he would take it out on others, and the moment I observed it, and it's like that, listen, dude, what is going on in your life, actually? No, not observe it. Ask the question to, instead of him like throwing fireballs at everybody, to look inside. And we started talking. The negativity that he was throwing around, again, evaluation, I'm calling everything negativity, but that frustration that he was projecting onto other people. So everybody was a bad person. People were there to get him, and all of that stopped, at least for some time, because unfortunately, if it happens on a regular basis, but only once you internalize, but you do not make it as a habit to keep thinking, okay, why am I doing that again? That question should be a habit, in a sense. Yeah. I don't know why I said it. Okay, Nechama, do we have more slides? Actually, I'm absolutely grateful for the job you did. Yeah, I will write a special thank you in the description
you're so
later
sweet.
on.
Thank you. Yeah. No, that was the last one. There was one more slide that said thank you with a picture of a cat on it. So.
Totally.
But actually, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. If you want, at the end, you can share it, the slide when we will be saying all goodbye, you share it, and then I will end the stream like that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. So we just have just pre-discussion if you guys want some stories.
Kara, I think that's a great point that you made, that it's like, I feel like it starts as like an internal thing, that's the way that we kind of categorize the way that we're thinking about a situation or about a person. To be able to like cultivate the habit of thinking more in observational and less in judgment. I think that's like, as you're saying, I just like thought like, oh, like, yeah, that really starts as an internal thing. I think that's like kind of interesting.
I'm observing my cat's annoying. She's scratching at the door and I don't know why. It's fed up.
Evaluation.
He observed it.
Well, do you want to listen to her and observe?
Cat scratching at the door, observation. Annoying is evaluation.
That's a funny game. Yeah, but like how long can it last? I wonder. Yeah. For me, nonviolent communication is still that thing that you practice with other people if they agree to it somehow. Because if people find it weird and robotic, it's like I have to respect that. And And I did hear before that nonviolent communication does sound very unnatural. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're first, I think it can be unnatural. I think in my experience, I found that I can use the non-evaluation when I'm talking to other people, but I can't expect or impose them to respond the same way. But I find it helpful myself when I'm already approaching a situation. And sometimes I'll approach something that I know is sort of a conflict already. And it does sort of help, like the outcome ended up being far more positive than I expected, let's say, normally. But something else I also noticed, I was thinking about this last night, is that like you were saying, Kara, how you use it sometimes in how other people talk to you and then you interpret in your head. I started doing this for myself, my own thoughts, how I'm talking to myself. Oh, I'm so lazy today. Oh, I didn't do the laundry in a week. Da, 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 da. And then I go, wait a second, why am I using the word lazy? What do I mean? You know, and I'm actually using it on myself going, okay, I didn't do the laundry in a week. Okay, that's an interesting observation. That doesn't mean I'm lazy. I had a busy week, da, 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 da. You know, but I started doing this in the last year, and just in an effort to be less judgmental of myself. Like I realized, like I wouldn't talk to a friend like this. Oh, you're so lazy. I would tell her, you know, we'd like, you know, look, you know, you're human. It's okay. And it really helped my internal dialogue a lot. And I will say it is kind of awkward, even with myself, because I'm like, oh no, you're just lazy. Like I answer myself back in my own head. I'm like, no, you're just lazy. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm fighting with myself now if I'm lazy or not, you know. But it has helped me to really drill it down to observations to be less judgmental. And as well using the, like, if I was talking to somebody else, would I talk to them this way? So I've been using it for me. I found it very helpful that way.
Yeah, that's a great point, that we can sometimes be violent to ourselves. That's like so true. And I think that's like probably exactly where it starts, is like, if we can learn how to manage ourselves in a peaceful way, I think we would have a better idea of like how to communicate with other people in a more peaceful way. And also like what you were saying about not being able to force other people to speak in that way, like definitely that is true. But also I think the best way to teach is to to give an example and to live by example. And I think like once you do that to other people, I think that people would be able to catch on, like, oh, like, yeah, Nechama has like a great way of like diffusing situations and speaking peacefully, and like they might pick up either consciously or unconsciously the things that you're doing and like also emulate that themselves.
Yeah, I actually noticed, because, okay, I have started doing this, and I noticed that people will, over time, who I talk to a lot, I don't know if they notice it or not, if it's conscious or not, they start mirroring it. And I'm not intentionally trying to make anybody do anything, but it's sort of like, oh, if something's working really well, you know, and so that's kind of cool to see.
Exactly. And like I think that's the best way to teach. It's like, it's not because you're forcing someone, it's just because they say, oh, that's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
You can pass it on that way. That's like A plus.
Yeah. I had this, okay, I learned in university, I had this exercise that my professor taught us. When you were talking, Kara, it reminded me like your thought process sort of similar to this. It's called perception checking. And it also uses this sort of observation versus evaluation. I just found the PDF. Do you mind if I pull it up on screen? I'd love to go over it.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, okay, let's see. Give me a second, please. I have like...
Just a point, when you say you're using the observations for your internal processing, I think that also adequately describes like what a Zen mind state is like, because evaluation is what we usually do. It's like when you say I'm being lazy, I haven't done like this thing, I should do this thing. Swapping to that observation mode is like, it's not that I'm lazy, I'm in the state of non-doing. The thing hasn't been done, and then you do it, and it's happened, and that little switch, it's like I can just let it be, and you're not judging yourself in that way.
Right. I'm no longer assigning the meaning of like bad. It just is, you know.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, when it gets done, it gets done. It makes it so much easier. And then all of the CPU in my brain and my emotional space gets freed up, and I'm not sitting there all day being like, oh, it's like, okay, calm down. It's okay, it's fine.
I like it. I'm so observant. Like each time I just go like this observation, evaluation, evaluation. Crazy. No, I'm observant. That's what I am. And then I go and entertain myself. I observed Nerdalliun, and AJ wanted to say something. What did you want to say, guys?
Oh, that's a great point about like when you're like giving yourself a bad evaluation, to let go of that, and that somehow it actually becomes easier. Like I can definitely relate with like when I'm internally speaking to myself, oh, I'm a bad person, it makes it a lot harder to do the thing. And then it's like sometimes if I like, maybe I need rest, and if I have the rest, and then maybe I will be more energized to do the thing, or sometimes just even letting go of that makes me be able to do the thing easier. It's I guess just the point that like it's not always helpful for the bad evaluation.
It's kind of like having this like aggressive thing in your head, and then diffusing that. Yeah, I'll say what I've noticed, because I've been doing it over a period of time, is that I didn't even realize these thought patterns that were sort of patterns. And that doing this because I've been doing this, the internal thing now for like about a year-ish, I think is when I consciously started to like practice it. And some of those like really set thought patterns that I had for a long time, or beliefs about myself, gone. It really like not in the beginning, but you start doing this a couple weeks, a couple months, that's about a year now. It's just like, oh, this is it's a lot clearer. It's a lot less judgmental. I'm a lot less judgmental of other people. I'm still a little judgmental, but a lot less, being less judgmental of myself has made me kind of more forgiving of others in some way. So
I did the same thing to like manage my anxiety. And I mean, it's taking like I have severe anxiety disorder, so it's taken like a long time to work through it all. But the starting stages, it's like it's all evaluation, and it's like, what is this thing going to do? Like, do I have to be worried about this? This thing, like the chair is out of place. That makes me feel like worried. It's like all these irrational things, and then you can just turn them to observations. And when you say it's like a little angry thing in your head, like I call it Mr. Anxiety, because you get to a point where you can sort of tame it and go like, Mr. Anxiety is like, oh, you need to be worried about like the rain coming in. And you just go, no, shut up, Mr. Anxiety. Go away.
Yeah.
And you can say it's going to rain. And then the evaluation, you can think more rationally through. It's like, well, how am I going to react to the fact it's going to rain, rather than how is the rain going to affect me before I can do anything about it, and get worked up about it.
Yeah, separate the thought from yourself. It's like this little gremlin, You're like, okay, that's an interesting opinion you have there, an interesting evaluation.
It's you are not your thoughts, but you have thoughts. And what you do with them comes after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even these things like lazy, they have like a very bad connotation. But there was a point made to me by Kara, one of our mutual friends, Mercury. One time I was complaining to him about like, oh, like I feel so lazy, like, oh, I'm a bad person, I'm like not doing these things, I'm lazy. And he told to me, this, I will never forget this, and I think about this a lot. He was like, what if Hitler had been lazy? Like, would the world have been a better place if Hitler had been lazy? And I'm like, oh, okay. So like these things that I think like are bad, like are not maybe always bad.
Sometimes not doing anything is really good for you.
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to be Hitler. Like sometimes just chilling on a Sunday and literally not doing anything is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really funny though. I'm gonna steal that from you if you don't mind.
I mean, if you think about it, there's never been a lazy dictator.
True.
I think it's like a logical paradox, because you can't like have an authoritarian grip on a country from inaction. It's the overuse of action.
Yeah, that's true. Kim Jong-un is a very hard worker. You can say something like that. Yeah.
Or is it the hardest worker?
Mm.
I was just like chatting. Sorry, I was so distracted. So there were like several users like with names that like, can you wish me a birthday out loud? And the name would be like really like, oh really? Like you think it's my
Oh, they
first
want you to say
rodeo?
something. Yeah.
Yes, and so they wanted to say those. And like it's like so obvious. It's like innocent, and it made me smile. It made me happy. Like I like thanks to those guys, I forget, or girls, I forget about the hardship and the war and stuff. I It's like it actually did brighten up my day. I had to ban two of them, but I will not say your name. Say okay, even
Yeah.
though like yeah,
Even
but
if it made you smile.
it makes me smile actually. But like the moment, like so, I'm in that mindset where I catch in the words, and then Andrew says dictator. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, oh, yeah. And then because I was in that mindset, taking all those words, so I don't say it, and it's like, yeah, the total dictators. It's a nice name, guys. Like whoever like forced one come in the name.
Okay,
Okay.
so
I just don't say it. I'm just silly.
No, it's no reason you need to. Yeah. I'm gonna share the screen. Hold on, and I'll show you guys the perception checking exercise, which has a lot of crossover with this, I think. And am I doing this correctly? I think so. So this is from like 10 years ago. So I actually have a lot of practice with this. And believe it or not, okay, when my professor taught this to us, I was like, oh, I'm so smart. I know what this, yeah. And then I started doing it, like practicing it in real life with my friends and family, people, even strangers. And I realized how often my perception was just not even close, like so wrong, so wrong. And in fact, a lot of the time, like, because I was doing a lot of evaluation and not even noticing and assuming so many things. And a lot of the time, some of the things I couldn't even, what was actually true, the feedback I got from the person, I couldn't even guess. So yeah, so this is what you were describing a little, Kara, that I wanted to, that reminded me of this. Let me zoom in so you guys can see more clearly. Okay. So it's a very simple exercise. Perception checking is a way of finding out if what you see and the way you see it, so what you see is observation, the way you see it is the valuation, are accurate or valid before you act or come to conclusion. Typically, the perception check follows 3 steps. One is the description, the facts, not an evaluation of the behavior you noticed. Okay. 2, you offer, this is just a method, right? 2, you offer at least 2 possible explanations for why the person is behaving this way. And 3, you request input from the other person. So an example of this would be the observation. And actually this is sort of evaluation, but okay, this isn't from the same book. It's okay. I noticed you seem very distracted today, is what you might say to the person of the behavior. 2, it could be you're just busy, or it could be something's wrong. And then 3, you request input. What's up? So here's the reasons for these 3 steps of this method. It uses an approach that does not evoke defensiveness, or at least minimizes it. Is number 1, why are you doing observation, not evaluation? You don't want to evoke defensiveness, or you at least minimize it. So you're observing something maybe you don't like, you're bringing up to a person. So this is what we all talked about already. 2, the reason you offer in this method 2 possible explanations, the person of the behavior, is to acknowledge that your perception is just that, it's your perception, and admits to the possibility of other explanations. By saying it could be this, it could be this, you're basically saying, I don't really know. And that tells the other person, I'm not telling you what's up with you. I actually have no freaking clue. And then asking for input, number 3, opens the possibility of dialogue. So you're not telling them or giving them a prescription. You're saying, I noticed this observation. It could be this, could be that. I have no freaking clue. What's up? So, okay. Step 1, you deal with the observational behavior. Yes, you talk about what you notice the person doing, not motives, not character, not past history. You do not use inflammatory language. Step 2, you offer the reasons. By offering more than one reason, yes, you admit there could be 1,000 reasons and you don't know if your assumption is correct. Step 3, you ask the person to participate, explain, or discuss the situation. Rather than shutting the person down with an accusation, you are asking for input. Okay, let's see. Hold on, what else it says. Okay, this is just a little bit more on it, but I'm curious what you guys think so far.
Yeah, I think that's like so awesome to be able to point something out in a way that is very open to the other person being able to respond with like what's actually going on. Like the second point about like putting forth like possible explanations to the behavior, like I feel like that really gives a good explanation of like, oh wait, actually like that wasn't exactly it, but here is what is going on. Like I feel like that's like a very the openness of that expression I really enjoy. I'm just thinking about like, oh, like there's so many situations where I wish the person who had spoken to me would have like had this more open attitude, because like I can think of situations where like I messed up and I know I messed up, and I messed up because I felt like I didn't have any other choice, and like I was like stressed out, couldn't ask for help, and like someone observed about me that I messed up and they said, oh, you messed up because you're a bad person and you're irresponsible and all this and that. And it's like, yeah, like if I had like, please speak to me in a way that's like, first of all, I know what the problem is. And I would
know already you messed up. Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't need to be told.
So, like if they had approached me in a way of like, oh, I noticed something's wrong. And for like, if I was able to say, yes, there is something wrong. Here's what it is. I would love some help with this. And like that in that situation, like it didn't happen. And this is something that's like, it's very easy for me to recognize that I would enjoy an improvement of communication in this way. But the flip side to that is what I'm thinking right now is like, it's probably very difficult for me to recognize once I'm doing this to other people. Like I'm probably like, it's very possible that I'm judging other people and not even realizing it. And now I'm like, what I'm thinking about now is like, how do I fix that? Like when I wouldn't necessarily get the feedback from someone else of like, oh, like you're judging me, you're not observing me. I'm like trying to think about like, how can I get better at like observing instead of judging other people? I like, yeah, just like to figure out how to put this practice into habits, I think is like really cool.
Yeah, I think so. What my professor did is she made us write like a 30-page paper on this. And the paper essentially was, you need to do this 3 times. I want you to like do this experiment in 3 different instances and write about it. And that's what I'm saying. When we were reading the book, I'm like, oh, I'm so smart, this and that. And then when I actually went into my life and like practiced it with other people, and I specifically chose situations that I was like, sure, I knew what was going on. I was like, oh, my brother said this to me because he thinks this and this and that, da, 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 da. And I was so wrong. But what I found was, yeah, I think like to your second point of like, how can you get better? Actually, it's just practice. Like once I started doing it, like I started finding opportunities every day of like where I can, and it is a little like in your head a little, you're like, what I found also helpful is allowing myself to be a little awkward with it. Like I would talk to someone and I would say something like, oh, I'm thinking about the best way I can kind of word this. Give me a second. Like I'm just acknowledging, giving myself that permission to be awkward. I'm not telling them, hey, I'm thinking this perception checking in my head and I'm doing it on you. You know, it's like, okay, nobody wants to hear that. But letting myself be awkward, telling them like, I'm being a little awkward and actually give me a second to think how to say this because I respect you. I don't want to say something thoughtless, you know? And actually people really like that, I found, especially like people close to me, people who I know well, you know, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then, so I found that in the beginning, I was kind of really clunky and I was really disappointed and kind of discouraged at sort of how like bad evaluation, Karen, now this is going to be in my head all day, evaluation, observation. But I was really disappointed sort of how bad I felt like I was at it and how wrong my assumptions were. Like it was a big ego check for me of like realizing like, I think I'm right. Like I know all of this stuff and I really, really, really don't. But then, you know, after a month, 3 months, 6 months, like I was like, oh, and then it just became like a really natural tool in my toolbox because it's such an easy, quick 1, 2, 3. Okay, observe. Okay, 2 possible reasons. Okay, what's up? Like, you know, asking for feedback. And honestly, like it's been so helpful for me. Yeah. So if it's something you want to practice, trust me, just the practicing it, you'll absolutely get good at it. There's no question.
I'm going to set myself the goal to do it 3 times in my life, or to do it 3 times in the near future. And I'm so excited about this. Like, thank you so much.
Yeah. And if you want to, you don't have to, but like you could journal about it, whatever. That was very helpful for me.
I think I will.
Writing the paper and kind of seeing myself. You don't have to do that part. Just doing it itself will kind of probably give you all that you need. But yeah.
I just want to jump in and say, like, this is also an exercise you can do on yourself. Like, notice something about yourself, give several possible explanations for why you are acting that way. That's something I've done a couple of times in my life. Actually, I do that quite often. But it's difficult. And so, given my experience of how difficult it is explaining my own behavior, I'm a little hesitant to make someone else the authority on explaining their own behavior as well. So I'm thinking, if, like in this exercise, if I'm saying, I noticed this in your behavior, and here are a couple of possible answers or explanations I can think of, the other person can also give a list of possible explanations. And just because it's their list doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse than my list. They're hypotheses that we can check against all sorts of forms of evidence. And that evidence can be additional observations, or it could be the opinions of a third party or a fourth party, or it could be facts from scientific disciplines like psychology or neuroscience or psychiatry or stuff can be relevant to interpreting behavior. But so getting better at it, I think, can be like better at interpreting people's behaviors and explaining people's behavior. Can be a very large project. Like nobody is a master of all of psychology. There's way too much psychology to study for any one person to master. Same for neuroscience, same for sociology, same for anthropology. And all those things may be relevant for interpreting why people behave the way they behaved. And yeah, even for individuals, they sometimes lie to themselves and deceive themselves. At the point of like deceiving themselves, so they're telling you not in order to deceive you, they're just giving you mistaken information because they don't have the self-awareness.
What they really believe or think, yeah.
So definitely having a bunch of different friends and family members who you can do this exercise with, who also does this exercise, who have high levels of self-awareness, would be very valuable in getting better. Yeah, I think history, anthropology, psychology, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, management, sales, they all have angles on explaining human behavior that may be helpful. And in different contexts, some disciplines are more helpful, and in some contexts, some people's insights are more helpful. As an outsider, sometimes we have it's easier for us to see things that are maybe emotionally difficult for other people to become aware of. So I think generally for third parties, seeing embarrassing or shameful things about other people are maybe a little easier than witnessing those things in ourselves, because every time we witness into ourselves, it's accompanied with very potent negative emotion that we are likely highly motivated to flee from in all sorts of distractions, or generally call them distractions. So I'm ranting a little bit, but I like the exercise, and I think John Gottman writes in like Really Healthy Marriages, and I think this counts for friendships too. Both partners sort of committing on a lifelong journey, or like on a long-term journey, to progressively get to know each other better is a very important keystone of good relationships, friendships or marriages or family relationships. And I think something like this exercise can be very helpful getting to learn each, especially if you do the same exercise with the same person over time, and they do it to you, like mutually understanding each other. But I think rather than taking each person as the authority on themselves, if you do that, what's going to happen is you're essentially going to get better at predicting how the people explain their own behaviors, which may or may not be all that much better than how you would explain their behaviors. Like typically a very skillful psychologist may be able to give a better explanation for behaviors than people would give of themselves.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons for number 2, which is giving the explanations, isn't even so much, at least from the way that I've experienced it, is it even most of the time so much about the why. The why almost doesn't matter. It's also more of a like letting the person know that it's okay that you have a reason. Your reason is probably reasonable, even if it's like, even if the reason was you were in a bad mood, like, oh, I see you slammed the door. Could be you were in a bad mood. Maybe you didn't notice. What's going on? What's up with you today? It's not so much, what usually in that case, in my experience, like what happens, because the responses that I get from people is never what I expect. They're not going into the why. Usually it has this effect where it just sort of, the person feels open and welcomed. They're like, oh, I had such a bad day at work today. And I'm like, oh, they wouldn't normally, it doesn't actually matter why. It's more an opening for communication that I found that like usually the why is like almost negligible. It's more so letting them know that the why is okay. Even if the why is like dumb or negative, I often try to give one why that's negative and one that's neutral to sort of give the subliminal message of like, it's okay. You know what I mean? So I'm not really trying to predict, and I kind of don't care why, unless it's like some crazy reason. I'm not gonna care, But yeah, but I liked what you said, and I think the thing you said about marriage and doing it with somebody else, it's really lovely. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think there also can be like a lot of explanations that like might not always, that could be applicable but not always like helpful. For example, like you could say, oh, like I did this thing because my mother didn't love me enough when I was a kid. And this is like, okay, well, I'm not sure exactly how to move forward with this, versus like something like, oh, I didn't do the thing because I forgot. And then it's like, oh, okay, well then can you set an alarm on your phone so that you remember, or something like that. Has like a little bit more like actionable fixing.
Yeah, and I think with the nonviolent communication, I'm not sure if we've done this yet in previous chapters or if it's ahead. But there is a request for like, there's like a step 4 in one of the things where you're supposed to ask the person of like, what can I do for you? What do you need? And I think it would be interesting to combine the two, not just asking like this perception checking, like in that case, AJ, also asking like, is there anything I can do? The not just the feedback, but also asking like, yeah. But I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to play around with.
Nechama, when you said you don't really care about the why, it made me laugh a little bit, because I think like you're really happy that people open up and whatever, but I think at least some people must think like, oh, this person really cares about why I do the things I do, and then explain why they do the things. And meanwhile, the person doesn't really care about the things why they do. They just like people opening up to them, and they figured this like game that they can play. And now I was imagining when you said, oh, you can also like ask them if there's anything you need. And like, oh, this person cares about my needs. And you're like, no, I don't care about your needs. I just like playing this game where I ask people what they need. And then I go on with my business. Like, yeah, whatever, thanks. It's really interesting knowing what you need. And it's fun having you tell me your needs. But I have other things to do now. So bye-bye.
Yeah. No, I think because I'm looking at it from more of a problem solving perspective. Because if it's generally a personal relationship, not always. But like, it's not that I don't care about the why. The why is going to be relevant. But it's sort of like, that's never the root issue. The why is never the root issue. The issue is always some sort of like emotional need, or someone had a bad day, or, like you said, I think often the why people give is not really the why. And the conversation that unfolds in my experience with this exercise after always ends up being somewhere else other than the why. It's usually some and that thing I do care about. Like if I care about the person, they have some unmet need, or there's something I can help with, like I do. I'm not sitting there like, I don't, just like laughing at the person instead. No, but it is funny. It is really funny when you say it like that. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Guys, so we are closing up the stream. Please stay inside. Nechama, because you actually did the entire heavy lifting.
Oh,
After Andre, AJ, Nerdalliun, Nechama, I will provide all the links below on how to support you. And Nechama, you have the word to close it and to share the goodbye slide.
wonderful. Okay. Let's see. Oh, here we go. I'm very proud of this. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being here. And this little kitty cat thanks you as well.
Nechama, thank you so much for it was awesome, the content. I really appreciate it. I have like very actionable steps that I would love to take. So thank you so much for the teaching. It's very good. Awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you for coming. Thank you, Kara, for inviting me. This was really lovely. And for all of you for participating.
And everyone else for the discussion too. Thank you for being here.
All right. Definitely looking forward to the next one.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Next one will be next week. I will, by the way, people, a small announcement. Always check out the community. I announce next streams in there. And yeah, whoever is knows a person who knows a person, join my Discord. They will share the invite.
Awesome.
Yeah. Nerdalliun, Andre, last words.
That was very fun. It was interesting to discuss more diplomatic approaches to having tough conflicts.
Yeah, nothing from me. Just thanks. Also had fun. It was interesting.